Madam Chairman,
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready.
every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes, I'm supposed to move, so if
Okay.
I could have the freedom just to stand next to my chair.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not leaving, I'm not mad, I'm just standing across my back.
Okay. All right, thank you, Matthew. All right, let's call the meeting to order. And we have a roll call first.
Sure. Sarah Glenville,
Here.
Dennis Scholl,
Here.
Eddie Oakley,
Here.
Ed Stafford,
Here.
Russ Walker,
Here.
Richard Newell,
Here.
Stephen Rose,
Present.
Kara Rena,
Here.
Sherry Richmond,
Here.
and Rebecca Raven. Madam Chair, all are present and accounted for.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will head right into number 3. We're going to continue our public hearing for the rezoning request of the following properties. 2221 Guilford College Road, 5300 Mackey Road, 2207 Guilford College Road, and 5303 Mackey Road. And since we left off last time with public comment open, we're going to move right into public comment. So, Katie, because of COVID, and are people here, or are they outside? Or? Okay. Okay, but there are people in here now, so I can just call for people to come forward. Okay, if whoever would like to speak in regards to the proposed development, if you would like to come forward to the podium, make your statements. You have 3 minutes for statements, and state your address. I'm sorry, that was the thing. State your address when you come to the podium.
Name.
Name and address, yes. I was thinking name was a given. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you're welcome.
Good evening. That was quick. To be up quick. I'm Bob Huber. I'm a combat officer, founder and president of the HEWA Center, a veteran support group located here in the Triad area. Our purpose is to help veterans transition from military into civilian life. One of the critical needs of that whole operation is providing adequate housing so that they are able to come from some distance, in Fort Bragg or areas that are just too far to commute. And so we were delighted when we recognized that there was a development being considered for the town of Jamestown. To his credit, we were contacted directly by the developer. We didn't seek him, he came looking for us. And we were delighted that when he proposed, should this development be favorably considered by the city of Jamestown, that he had wanted to donate 15 or 20 homes specifically for wounded warriors. And to support that, he categorically said, if you need ADA compliant homes, if you need wheelchair compliant homes, whatever you need, that we would be happy to provide them according to your specifications, meaning we had the opportunity to define exactly what the houses would look like. So his proposal, based on our conversations, would create a cluster here in the community in phase 1, hopefully, that could be determined based on other factors, and then those homes would be built. The keys would be handed to us as a direct donation transfer.
Oh.
There would be no contingency strings in terms of how we would use those and how we would put those into place. So specifically, then I went down to Fort Bragg with that information to what they call the Warrior Transition Unit that is in Fort Bragg. There are 283 wounded warriors. 80% of those transition out, do not go back to their operational unit. When I recognized to them and to that organization specifically, as opposed to Fort Bragg in its totality, they said that that is the one thing that is the biggest challenge for wounded warriors who are coming off of active duty, separating from their unit, and kind of left to defend for themselves. The fact that we could provide them ready homes and that they would be something that they could have available to them was something that they were just absolutely delighted to hear. And so just briefly, our homes, I think, should we receive those, would be generally transitional, would bring them in for 2 years, help them get going, get them settled, go to GTCC, support this community here, and then they would go on and maybe purchase a home in the development once they had the transitional skills, life skills, personal well-being, mental health, the things that we can provide them organizationally, then I think they could become economic assets to the city of Jamestown. So we're riding the wave. We hope it all goes well. It is what it is. Time will tell. I wish his project well because he has a heart for veterans. He was as proud, as patriotic, came out very, very clearly, and we were thrilled to have that conversation. I hope you favorably consider the project.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Victor Jones. I live at 2512 Birch Point, High Point. I lived in Jamestown for about 10 years. I used to own the day spa and tanning salon here in Jamestown. My limo company, World Limousines, is Jamestown. Now is 100 yards out of Jamestown, High Point. I also serve on the city council for High Point, and I am the board chair of the Hero Center. My goal here is to just convey how important this project could be for the veterans in North Carolina and abroad. When I came off active duty, I was one of the many veterans who did not know how to cope with being around you guys again, and I failed out of college, and that's not like me. I was a very good student, and a lot of the isolation and not being around my other combat veterans and Marines made it very difficult to transition, and that's typically the point in which veterans turn to self-medicating. A lot of the veterans that I've lost to suicide that served with me is because of the isolation. And I can't bring them back, but what I can do with my commitment to the Hero Center is try to provide an environment where they're not alone anymore. And so when they come out for that first 1 to 2 years, our goal is to have them in this area. These are not, off the street. These are veterans coming right off of active duty, my age and younger. And we want to give them a neighborhood where they can look to their neighbor who's checking their mail or mowing the lawn and say, how you doing? How you holding up? That kind of a thing, create that community. I don't know that it's ever been done before, but it's almost like having on-base housing, but right here in Jamestown. And the fact that this developer reached out to me back in the summer, about 15 people in Guilford County said, you need to talk to Vic Jones. He's the guy for veteran stuff. I guess I've gotten that marketing done pretty well. So, but we've had a few conversations. We don't have, any formal in writing agreement at this point, but he has verbalized his intent to give us these houses that we can use for these veterans who are coming off of active duty. And then we will assist these veterans to enroll in their VA benefits, how to get connected with jobs, how to get connected with employers, all of those resources that I can do like that. A 22-year-old kid coming out of the Army or the Marines doesn't know how to do. So I hope you will consider that project that not only could be good for your economic development and tax base here in the Guilford County and Jamestown, but also for the veterans that I want to make a difference in their lives. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Are there others who'd like to come forward and speak?
My name is Jerry Buqua. I'm retired from Duke Power, 32 years, and retired from Guilford County Schools after 26 years. So
And I'm sorry, sir.
it's making me old, I guess.
Sir, if you feel comfortable taking your mask off, it's easier for us to hear, but if you don't, that's okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Not used to this yet.
I know, I know.
For months. I guess I'm going against the grain here a little bit because my concern mostly has been with the changing of the numbers in terms of the density. I'm concerned with the school systems and the understanding that right now they're packed anyway. So what happens when we have an influx of thousands and more? Some of the things that have been promised, that have been taken off the table. For whatever reason, I don't know. The promises, I guess, need to be written in stone. I don't oppose progress and development because it's coming whether we like it or not. But there are ways to guide it and there are ways to accommodate not only the developer, but the people who live around that area. So that's my biggest concern. I'm not a You figured this out. I'm not a gifted speaker. Get the point across, I guess. But I just appreciate you listening, and hope things will go the way we hope it'll go. Thank you.
Thank you. And you did great. All right, come on. Anyone who wants to come forward here?
Hi, my name is Laura Gathern Fuqua. I'm actually Jerry Fuqua's granddaughter. I am born and bred Jamestown. I just want to first thank you guys for this because this is volunteer. Y'all were not elected. You chose to do this. The biggest thing about this development is, again, the density. It's such a mass influx. You are looking at the kid who suffered through Adams Farm. When I entered Millis Road in 1988 in kindergarten, there was 2 trailers. One was music and art. The other was learning disabled and academically gifted. By the entry of 2nd grade, we did not have a playground. 3rd, 4th, upper grades, no playground. Pilot didn't open until I was about to leave there. We went to school in Trailer City, rotating classrooms, eating their lunch in the classroom because there wasn't a hallway left to put a table. And I can tell you now, as someone who volunteered at Ragsdale for over 16 years and also coached basketball there, we can't stuff 1,500 kids in a school building that is meant for 500. It cannot be done. So the density is nothing. The lot size, they are smaller in size than the lots in Adams Farm. My granddad used to joke to a good friend, Pete, you could mow your front and back lawn in 10 minutes and take a 3-minute potty break. It's true. Another issue is promises made and apparently disappeared. Where are the baseball fields? Where is the designated land for that? Where is the designated land for the proposed new elementary school? Where are these things? That was the carrot that was put on the table. It's kind of a give and take. For honestly, at this point, it looks like a lose-lose for the average tax-paying resident. There's nothing at this point to gain. The schools are going to be full. The youth league fields are not going to be there. And my kids are going to suffer through a massive explosion of children. Not that kids are bad. You just can't cram 1,500 sardines into a can that was made for 500. So again, I thank you. I want to make it very clear. No one says no, absolutely no development. It's going to happen. Change is a part of life. But there is a way that we can do this and flatten the curve so it's not an explosion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Come on. If you could just state your name and address for us.
My name is Matt McCarthy. I'm actually the lead pastor at Vertical Church over in what was formerly the Thomasville building. And I actually tried to move to Jamestown 5 years ago when my family and I moved in from Chicago. And interestingly, we couldn't find a home. We fell in love with the community. And we were actually, we searched and searched and searched, and we were unable to find something. So that's just a personal note that I would like to share with you. But as far as our church goes, we have a mission statement, and it's simply this: we exist to help people love, live, and lead like Jesus. And everything that we do at Vertical Church is umbrellaed underneath that mission statement. So any program, anything that we do, it's about really making better people who are going to be like the Christ in the New Testament. And interestingly, God's done some amazing things at our church in 5 years. We were a church plant, had nothing when we started, and we have well over 200 people in attendance. We've seen marriages restored. We've seen people become followers of Jesus. People who are far from Jesus are now following Jesus. We've been able to help build stronger families with financial counseling and those types of things. We've given over $130,000 away to different organizations as a small church in 5 years. Diamondback Investment is wanting to donate us property. There's nothing being exchanged. It's free will. And because they believe in what we're doing. We have a mission to plant more churches, not in this direct community, but in the North Carolina region. And we've already begun discussions about future developments such as this and gaining more property. Because at the end of the day, strong communities are built by strong families. And I believe as a pastor, of course, that the church is vital to that. And so as you consider these things before you and the available property across the street from this future development, I really believe that what Zach is offering and what we can come underneath that is really just going to enable Jamestown to build upon the legacy that it already has. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, come on.
Thank you for the time and the opportunity to speak. My name is James Walsh. I'm also a member of Vertical Church in Jamestown, North Carolina. I share a similar story. When my wife and I moved here from Washington, D.C. 8 years ago, one of the first communities we looked at was Jamestown, and we could not find a house that suited us and our 4 children. Got to know Zach over the past year. He approached our church. We didn't approach him. And he shared with us his mission of bringing this community together and to what was foundational, what was going to be important to this community. He offered Vertical Church, as Pastor Matt talked about, with no strings attached. We want this community to be helped by this church planted right near the center of town. We have over 200 members in our church, many families that can't wait, including my family, my wife and 4 children, to move into Jamestown to be part of this community, this specific community. As a church, we can't wait to be central within the community, to be a lighthouse and to bring the community together to offer programs to help the families, the children, and others. Professionally, I'm a senior vice president at Bank of America. I managed the commercial bank for over 10 years, part of that time here in the Piedmont Triad, and now do wealth management. I also am an adjunct professor at UNCG. When I look at this development for the town of Jamestown, I'm amazed to see the amount of possibilities that exist from an economic standpoint, and that could really help this community. And when I see that with the heart of a church that's on the outskirts of Jamestown right now, it's going to be put in the center of thousands of new families. I'm just beyond excited for the opportunity to partner with Jamestown, move my family into this community, and be a part of the Jamestown community. Thank you for your consideration. I've gotten to know Zach, Hal, and their team, and they've been a huge blessing both to the church, but also in the ways that they have blessed our family and others as well with no strings attached. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Come on up. And just a reminder, Kenny, I don't know if there are people waiting outside, but if there are, just remember that after you speak, to make room for others to exit through this door over here.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Fran McCarthy. I'm one of the elders at Vertical Church here in Jamestown. And, not to be redundant, and hopefully I'll be the last person from Vertical. We didn't want to bring a bunch of people just to say the same thing over and over again, but we're just very excited at the donation that is being offered to us by Diamondback. And, as an older person and someone who's lived a long time, these are tumultuous days that we live in, obviously. And families and children are being stressed beyond limits that I've ever known in my lifetime, for sure. And as Pastor Matt has mentioned earlier, we exist to minister to families, to children, to senior citizens as well, who are facing things that they've never even dreamed of would be facing them in their lifetimes, losses of jobs, not being able to be in school, things like that. And so we're looking forward to being able to help the people of Jamestown in that way. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Janina Austin. I live in Cedarwood.
And Gina, if you're comfortable taking your mask off so we can hear,
Sorry.
that's fine, that's
We
fine.
shouldn't even be having this meeting right now. We have fully like 1/10 of the population in Jamestown diagnosed with COVID, 353 cases. But I'm here because I believe in this issue. I've been here, my family's been here since 1980. I grew up here since I was 5. You heard from many, many community members who risked the beginning of the pandemic on March 10th at the main meeting, not the planning board, to tell you all of their concerns. The main concerns are increased density, and we still have 1,269 units in this development. We have almost 0 usable green space. We have no schools. No land for schools, but we need an additional church. I'm not surprised that the church members are here to welcome the addition of free land for another church. Great communities, great neighborhoods are made by strong schools. Our Guilford County Board of Commissioners has given us $300 million to solve a $2.1 billion problem. We don't need 1,279 more families sending their kids to their schools here without an additional school. It's insulting to our intelligence, these little tidbits. Do you really think he's going to give free houses to a whole bunch of people? Veterans they sacrifice for our country. They deserve to be rewarded and cared for. But it's insulting to say that this development is what they need. They need social services. They need jobs that pay them enough to support their families. They don't need this nonsense. We have been very frustrated by the response from the town council. Many people, including my own mother, who's a cancer survivor, cannot be here today while there's a raging pandemic on the 3rd incline. They can't be here. Your own member, Jason Spangler, can't be here because you won't make accommodations for him to appear on Zoom. At least that's what he has told others. I would love to have appeared on Zoom to protect my safety and make sure I don't accidentally infect my mother as being a carrier without any symptoms. But what it really boils down to is this development is going to be high density. It's going to fundamentally change the character of Jamestown. I, as a realtor, actually support development. I support low-income housing. I know that many in my group of Jamestown United don't, but I know that people of all income levels need housing. But this crush of new residents in Jamestown is going to be unsupportable. And I don't understand why the new plan from Diamondback was announced on Friday online. And here we are on Monday to accommodate their schedule. What about the schedule and the concerns of the members of the residents of Jamestown and those who will be affected? I live right across from where phase 1 will be at Guilford College Road and Mackey. I really hope you take these concerns to heart and address them because the town council has not. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello.
Oh,
I'm Katie Gummerson. Do I need to say my address?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's 4648 Jamesford Drive. And I just wanted to share with you, I have about 250 signatures here from citizens in Jamestown, both from the ETJ and Jamestown proper, so we call it. And basically the petition just states at the top, as residents of the town of Jamestown and members of the surrounding and affecting communities, we do hereby protest the rezoning of 2207 Guilford College Road, 2221 Guilford College Road, 5230 Mackey Road, 5300 Mackey Road, 5303 near Mackey Road, from agricultural to planned unit development. By signing this document, we want to be on record as being against Diamondback Investment Group LLC, PUD's proposal of high density and multifamily housing, smaller lots, mixed use and commercial uses. We request consideration by the planning board for the aforementioned properties to be rezoned from agricultural to single-family residential. We find the high density of the PUD to be unreasonable and not in line with the current 2020 comprehensive plan and or the 2020 land development ordinance, as well as putting an unnecessary strain on currently overburdened infrastructure. We desire a development that uses high quality architecture, preserves unique landscape features, and embraces the town's rich heritage and maintains a small, rural, feel of the town of Jamestown and ETJs that we all know and love. So I can hand these to you. I hope that you consider.
You can give them to Katie. Yeah.
Katie. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks, Kenny. Did you want to speak? Come on up. No, you're fine. And if you're comfortable taking off your mask, we can hear you better, but if you're not comfortable, that's fine too.
Absolutely.
And if you could just state your name and address.
Sure.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Chris Wheat, W-H-E-A-T. I live at 109 Daniel Paul Drive, Archdale, North Carolina. So I'm a resident of Archdale, but I attend Vertical Church in Jamestown, North Carolina. Also have a strong connection to Jamestown. I was a counselor and special ed teacher at Jamestown Middle School for about 9 years when I was with Guilford County Schools. I'm now a principal in Asheboro. But I just want to tell you, as a church, and I'm sorry, I just ran in quickly from work.
Yeah, that's fine.
As a church, we're just extremely excited for this opportunity to be right here in the heart of Jamestown. I definitely understand residents have their concerns of change, and I completely identify with that. I think if this year has taught us anything, is that change is inevitable, but growth is optional. That's a motto that we have at our school. So I just want to let you guys know that we are committed to the families of Jamestown. And as a member of Vertical Church, I just wanted to share that tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Kenny's looking. Okay. I can't tell who's coming, who's gone. Okay, all right, no rush.
While we're waiting on them, I'll stand up. Exactly. So still.
Eddie, look at you here. You've really stepped into the 21st century. You've really stepped into the 21st century over here, Eddie.
So I can see it. I can't see it on the
On the paper?
phone.
Oh, on the phone, yeah, I know. No, no one else? Okay, no one else in here is here to speak? Okay, so I guess we will close the public comment period then. All right. Now we will move into hearing from the applicant. And they can come and let us know where they're at. And I know I have questions. I don't know if the rest of you might have some questions for the applicant. So we'll go into that portion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nice to see everyone again. Mr. Stafford, glad you're feeling well enough.
Thank you very much.
I want to introduce everyone I've got with us tonight. We do have a full presentation of everything that's happened since I last addressed you directly on August 10th, I believe. And I've got a lot of folks with me here tonight to make sure that we cover everything y'all want to cover. So I'm going to do that, then I'm going to talk and just want you to know what resources you have available to you. We've got the two principals of Diamondback Investment Group, Hal Kern and Zach Tran. We've got our division president who would oversee this project, Brandon Horn. We have our traffic consultant, Jeff Hutchendale with Timmons. We have our design and engineer head, Jim Chandler, also with Timmons. We have our certified arborist, Neil Beardsley. And we have our real estate brokerage expert, Robbie Perkins, to discuss a couple different things that we'll get to. And then, of course, they're here for your questions as you need them. I wanted to start tonight. I apologize. Technology failed us. So good thing for good old paper printouts, which you all have in front of you. So
Do
we'll
we
just,
have handouts? Oh, here, I see.
yes,
Yeah.
we'll just walk through those slides as if it were a real PowerPoint.
Are these available on the website for? Okay, thank you.
Just a little roadmap of what we're going to cover. I wanted to start tonight. We've been in the weeds on this for a while, about 3 months now. We've covered a lot of good ground. So I thought it was important to zoom back out and refocus what our beginnings of this analysis should be in the comprehensive plan. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about the specifics of your actual adopted comprehensive plan. Then we're going to talk about the big bulletin item tonight, what's changed in this plan that we submitted since we have gotten all this nice direction from you guys over the last few months. What didn't change? Why didn't it? What was the intentionality and considerations behind those items? Then we're going to talk about this plan in its new state's consistency with the comprehensive plan. Lastly, we'll hear some items from our specialized experts that I've said are here. You've got a certified arborist report as part of your package that Neil's here to talk about. We've got Robbie here to answer outstanding questions about real estate market. Of course, we've got our traffic engineer here to talk about outstanding questions on traffic impact and improvements, proposed improvements. A few other little things will get covered along the way, but that's your basic roadmap. So looking at your third slide, why do I think we need to start with a discussion of comprehensive planning? Well, it's because it's critical to your analysis, and it's critical in two ways, practically and legally. Practically, it is a planning tool. It's literally the device that exists for governing bodies like yourself in these situations. It's intended to guide coordinated, efficient, and orderly development within the planning and development regulation jurisdiction based on an analysis of present and future needs. That's from our general statutes you see cited. A couple of other sources I've paraphrased here. You see the sources listed. Regulation and controls should embrace and further the plan, not the other way around. And you see these sources date from 1931 to the 60s. So this is not new technology. This is how we've done it, and it works. It's tried and true. Comprehensive plans are created and adopted pursuant to a public and transparent process. That's a really key feature. They're not done in a vacuum. They're not secret. They're not decided by an oligarchy and then rolled out for everyone else to live and die by. They are done out in the open, light of day, with everyone's viewpoints on the table, so that when you fast forward to a controversial moment like the one you're in now, you have that tool to guide you when everyone's insights and viewpoints were clear and unfiltered and not mired by a current confrontation. That's why it's such a valuable tool. Once adopted, it then acts as a guidepost for future difficult decision-making. They're to be used as a tool for evaluating development requests. And these are not my own thoughts and opinions. This is, David Evans, Richard Ducker's School of Government, your own town staff planning principles, which is why I've given you some sourcing here. Moving on to the legal importance of it, it's not only practically useful, it's also required as a consideration under North Carolina law. Of course, since the beginning, under NCGS 160A 383, both cities and counties require that zoning be in accordance with a comprehensive plan. In keeping with that principle, North Carolina has developed and added upon that over the years. So we've got a very rich and evolved history of how we're supposed to use comprehensive planning in our zoning decisions. In 1938, one of our earliest zoning cases confirmed the importance of comprehensive planning as fundamental to any zoning decision. Court cases throughout the middle of the century, the 60s and 70s, such as Allred v. City of Raleigh, continued to flesh out exactly what it meant to have a comprehensive plan, what types of planning studies, what types of future growth plans could be counted as a comprehensive plan that would meet that statutory enabling requirement. In 2017, a amendment I'm sure you're all familiar with directed the governing bodies to adopt a plan consistency statement. Had to be in one of three forms. Either one, approval of the amendment plus a description of the consistency with the plan, or two, a rejection of the amendment plus a description of the inconsistency with the plan, or three, an approval of the amendment plus a declaration of the plan's amendment to therefore match the approved zoning change. Newly adopted 160D, which is supposed to be online now but hasn't because of COVID delays, will be online soon, further strengthens the mandate for a comprehensive plan to guide all zoning decisions. So again, just our state further solidifying and doubling down on the importance of a comp plan to zoning decisions. Of course, Jamestown does have a comprehensive plan adopted in 2007. It's your 2020 comp plan. And taking a look at what it says on this topic, it has several nice statements of exactly what we've been saying. In its purpose of the plan on page 4, the current plan will serve as a guide to local government decisions. The plan is intended to serve as a guide to the property owners and developers who propose site improvements, to the staff who review and comment on these proposals, and the elected and appointed officials who consider these requests. Again, on page 4, this plan was put together, quote, with extensive input from the town staff, a community task force, and the public was used to identify core community values and to build support for the plan. This framework of community values was applied to a detailed analysis of existing conditions and growth factors to draw conclusions and make recommendations about future development in the 2.98 square miles that comprises the town of Jamestown. Recommended land use designations were developed to provide a strategic, proactive vision of where and how the town of Jamestown wishes to grow in the future. I know that was a little lengthy to read, but that's really important because it tells you that a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. You know, in a single public hearing or 3 or 4 in our case, it's a lot of work to evaluate all of the existing conditions of Jamestown, all the future needs, all the present issues that could be resolved. So what a comp plan does, it's already done all that for you. And then it's decided what strategies, what mechanisms, what tools the town needs to use going forward. And what that does is it puts you so many steps ahead in the process when you do get a request to compare it against those things that have already been decided by your process without a developer asking you for something or breathing down your neck or influencing the process. We have a few other things. A key theme that emerged in your community meetings during your process was to make daily decisions with the future roadmap in mind, roadmap being your comp plan. Your comp plan produced a mission statement. The mission statement reads in part, to establish a plan to help guide land development decisions. Of course, that will build on the town's heritage, diversity, and local economy, fit the community's small town character, preserve our cherished natural, cultural, and historic resources, enhance our quality of life, and be consistent with our ability to provide adequate public services and infrastructure. Of course, there's a lot there that reasonable minds can disagree on, but the point is that the plan is supposed to guide that analysis.
Amanda, before you go on, and I apologize to interrupt.
Yes, ma'am.
But is this presentation indicating you don't feel that we know all this stuff already? Or?
I just think it's important for the consistency of the record to make sure that we present our full case.
Okay, that's
Thank you
fine.
for humoring me.
But you know, we all as planning board members have read the plan. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So now that we know what the plan is supposed to do, both practically, both locally here in Jamestown and required under North Carolina law, what does your plan actually say? This part I will go a little faster through as the chair acknowledges. I know y'all are familiar with your own plan's goals. You want an enhanced sidewalk system and a greenway network. You want the town to pay attention to opportunities to meet those goals. You want to reevaluate the existing land use analysis, of course, existing at that time being 2007, to maybe take a step back from the town's conventional zoning type of ordinance, which focused on separation of uses. The plan emphasizes doing so by focusing on activity centers and alternative types of more modern styles of development, such as traditional neighborhood developments, cluster developments, and PUD developments. The comp plan does have a future land use map giving property designations across the town. Our site specifically is designated suburban residential with a traditional neighborhood development overlay. The goal for suburban residential new developments is to require paved streets, to connect existing and future neighborhoods, and to have more pedestrian-friendly, ample sidewalks, street trees, greenway trails, and neighborhood parks. The traditional neighborhood development overlay is supposed to be hallmarked by smaller lots, building placement close to the street, narrower streets, alley interconnectivity among neighborhoods, abundant sidewalks and street trees, neighborhood parks to service the needs of local residents, and a mixture of uses and housing types. It's also part of the Gateway Corridor, which we'll talk about a little later, which of course requires the preservation and enhancement of those scenic vistas as you come along your major roads, Guilford College Road being one of them. So with all that in mind, obviously you guys know where we've been, so where are we now? We have made a lot of revisions to the plan that I want to go over in detail right now. I want to thank you for the 3 months of feedback and insight and direction that we've gotten. It was quite valuable to listen to that discussion and, crystallize and hear how your value tree parsed out and where we needed to place emphasis and make the most impact with the changes we can make. So we did hear you loud and clear that the lot count density needed to go down. So we reduced the homes from 1,517 down to 1,269. That's 248 less lots. It's actually closer to a 15% reduction. I apologize on the math there. But we think that's significant. A 15% growth in either direction in any of your daily day jobs, I imagine you would call significant. So we hope that you'll see that as a true good faith effort to listen to you. That reduces the density from 3.25 units an acre down to 2.72 units an acre. The main way that this was accomplished was through increasing the lot size, which was also one of your big priorities, your must-haves that we heard loud and clear. So we did increase all of our single-family lot sizes. It used to be a range ranging from 50 feet to a 55-foot frontage, varying sizes between, we were between, let's see, I have it here, 6,300 square feet about to just over 7,100 square feet. Now we've aligned all the single-family lots at one size to be 60 feet wide and have a square footage of 8,100 square feet. We've also increased the front setbacks on those larger lots. So now you'll see a range of 20 to 25 feet on the front yard setbacks, whereas it used to be 18 to 22 feet. Still wanted to keep that range of play so that you can get a little differentiation in your streetscape. Residential building height, we heard comments about that particularly the townhomes didn't need to be so tall. So we did reduce those to 36 feet for all housing types. And that is to cover roof pitch and those items as well. So we believe that to be much more in keeping with the the book, but when I say fully screened, the way we've proposed it is with both a berm and substantive plantings that would be approved by your staff. So if you guys have a specific landscape list that you want to recommend, we'll be happy to do that now. But in lieu of that, what we're saying is that we'll work with your staff to come up with the best plantings. And that may change, if we find that something's not working, or the town doesn't like how something was on the first phase, the town staff can help guide that better in the second phase. Now, that being said, installing that type of buffer, you're going to hear from the arborist later, and perhaps those of you who had a chance to review the arborist report notice that does directly conflict with one of your other big priorities to save as many trees as possible. So we would like to take the arborist recommendation and keep as much as we can of that. So, again, that's at your pleasure, whichever you would prefer, the way it's proposed or the way the arborist recommends, or a hybrid of both. That can be a field determination in the areas where there's nice hardwood trees to save. Maybe it's a good idea not to have to grade that, to put in an artificial berm and trees that won't grow to replace those heights in any of our lifetimes. So we're happy to take the arborist recommendation on that. But the point is, we did want to provide clear recognition of that feedback and a clear commitment to you that it will be fully screened, such that none of this will be visible from your main corridors, which I believe was the big takeaway of that feedback. And there is a cross section in the booklet where we provided this, which is like looking at it from the side. So you can see a house in scale with the buffer and then to the road. So it gives a little bit better understanding of what it would feel like to be passing by in a car and what that 50-foot buffer would function like. I apologize, I'll get you a page number on that here. That's on page 16. We also relocated, going back to revisions, we relocated the main amenity area for the development into the center of the project. That was a big piece of feedback from you guys, to get that off the perimeter so other neighbors and passers wouldn't have to see it. So we did do that. It's completely central to the neighborhood now. Let's see. We also replaced the townhomes that were along Guilford College Road, directly across from Cedarwood. That was a S1 pod before. Excuse me, that was a townhome pod before. Now it is an S1 pod with those larger lot sizes, and of course with that buffer that we just talked about. This also gives the ability for the age-targeted homes to come to the front of the development, which was a comment you guys had given. You'll notice we took out all the differentiations, S1, S2, S3, because now we've gone to this just across the board commitment for the large single-family lot sizes. So what that does is actually just keep it flexible as to where the age-targeted can go. So we can talk about that tonight, but since they're all the same now, we don't have to pin that tail on the map right away, because those commitments will be required everywhere. We eliminated as many cul-de-sacs as we could, tried to grid this thing out better. You still do see cul-de-sacs because, of course, there are enclaves and parts of this property that need to be accessed and then can't continue because of environmental features, which are important in their own right. So that's where you see the cul-de-sacs. We eliminated the undesirable farmers market and the town recreation facility area based on feedback that those weren't something that necessarily was on the town's radar right now. So we gave that area back to one of the other priorities, for the larger lots and spreading things out a bit. So that's where that space went.
Just before you go on, that I guess we can circle back around to it, but I don't recall us having a conversation that the town recreation facility was undesirable. I think we had a conversation that the location was undesirable, but not necessarily the land use was undesirable. So I noted, as was spoken during public comment, that the fields were taken out.
Okay, appreciate that feedback. I'll make a note. Let's see, we also, we had some discussion here before about what was that civic institutional use going to be at the corner of the southwest corner, I believe it is, of Guilford and Guilford College Road. So we've clarified that the goal there is for church. And I apologize, I didn't know what the order of operations was going to be tonight, but we wanted to make sure you knew what that church was all about, what that commitment was for, because it seemed to be an outstanding issue that was not clarified before. So that is something that Zach has put together with a specific church who has a specific need, wants to be in Jamestown, and is ready to go for that use. So that's what why that land use is on that corner. Let's see. We increased the architectural standards and commitments for both the residential and commercial buildings. We can talk about those in detail and once either now or when I finish the canned part of this presentation. But those were in direct, the choices of additions there were in direct response to things we heard from you. You know, things about we need, if you're going to have one of these mixed material frontages, that mixed masonry needs to go more than just the first 3 feet of the building. So that's a specific commitment. We heard if you're going to have expanses, you know, that are your secondary building materials, such as the vinyl, then don't just make it a big expanse of vinyl. Give us some windows. So we put a condition in here about more than one window on each level. Sometimes you see just a random bathroom window up top and nothing else. So that's what that's about. We made some commitments for the grade of vinyl used because, you know, as we all know, you know, vinyl today isn't vinyl 50 years ago as nothing is. So with the come on of hardy plank and those types of products, vinyl has had to compete and they've done so really well. They've got this is how I think of it as a non-builder. Everybody knows about architectural dimensioned roof shingles. There's the equivalent of that in vinyl. There's architectural grade, dimensional, you know, meant to look real grade vinyl. And I can vouch for that. I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission in Greensboro, which is all about requiring the same building materials as when these houses were constructed in the 20s. And we actually have switched over to allowing some of these vinyl products in areas where the parts of the house are exposed to the weather because the maintenance is so much easier. They're so much more stable and they look the same. So all that to say that we are committed to using those higher standards of vinyl and we hope that that commitment resonates with the way that product has developed over the years. We've also clarified commitments about foundation plantings. You know, it's obviously much better to have those frontages covered up from day one instead of waiting for a homeowner to move in, have the time to plant it, have the time for it to get growing. So this way it's done from day one, unless of course a house is finished in January, in which case those plantings would just die. So we've committed to the subsequent growing season if those months don't plan out. So do y'all want to talk about those one by one now, or do you want to finish going through?
No, we can go
Okay.
through.
Great. So flipping now to what didn't change. You asked for a relocation of the commercial mixed use area. You wanted to see that moved to the interior of the site. We couldn't do that. We chose not to accommodate that request because simply put, there's just not going to be any viability for a commercial development of this small scale to succeed if it doesn't have some passerby visibility. It's just a tried and true truth that retail needs passerbys, it needs traffic. And the scale and context of this development and the placement on the interior of this neighborhood just wouldn't support it. And then we'd be dealing with an unsuccessful shell, an empty space that was meant to be an anchor and a community gathering spot. And it would, we believe, lead to a blight and a detriment to a community that we're trying to make an amenity. Also, by placing it's a visually high impact, you know, it's going to be nice, it's going to be interesting, it's going to create a sense of, oh, what's that? And maybe we should go look at that. That's a nice feature to have on the front entrance. You know, it's got the town square, it's going to have all this outdoor seating. We hope that that'll be something that frankly you want to see when you drive by. That's why we're trying to focus on and commit to it being done well and it being done in a way that you can be proud of so that it being on the front corner is seen as a good thing. Lastly, to be on the perimeter, this mixed-use center is more engaging and it's more inclusive to the entirety of the Jamestown community, instead of appearing to be just for the residents of Castleton Village. This way, it can act as a bridge and a gathering spot for folks from everywhere, anybody who wants to use it and drives by or walks by or hears about it. It's not meant to be something exclusive to Castleton, so we wanted to locate it in a way that said so. Next, you asked for an affirmative list of permitted tenant uses for the commercial area. Certainly, we can find a way to narrow that based on what does exist in your permitted use table, but what we can't do is call out uses that don't currently have a definition or a place in your permitted use table. Vape store and CBD store were two things you guys mentioned that don't currently live in your permitted use table, so we don't have a way to prohibit those under the way zoning law works. But if y'all want to take a look at that permitted use table, or the town does as we move forward, and you say, well, hey, can you at least get rid of mattress stores or this or that, something that we can track to the permitted use table, that is a discussion that we're happy to have. We hope we've demonstrated by the sizing requirements with this small building that obviously we don't see it as being appropriate for big, large scale, big box retailers. We do see this as boutique, small scale neighborhood serving. So we're trying to create that commitment through logistics. The methodology of density calculation is something we heard about. There was a call to compute the density based on just the actual acreage that was being used for the development as opposed to the entire subject site, gross versus net. We wanted to stick with gross and have done that in the densities that I just read out to you this evening. First and foremost, because that's what your ordinance calls for. It's defined in your definitions in Article 3. I've written it here as it's read. Development density of. The density of a development shall be determined using a gross acreage system. The total acreage of the tract, including areas to be used for new streets, rights of ways, drives, parking, structures, recreation areas, dedicated areas, and required setbacks shall be used for density calculations. So we felt like sticking with that, which is what the town uses, would be a better apples to apples comparison, create more consistency and fairness for the administration of that going forward. You asked for a single family lot size of at least 10,000 square feet. And obviously you noted that that was predicated on the fact that that's what was allowed everywhere else and that would be more compatible. And of course we recognize by asking for 8,100 square feet, one, that's not giving you what you wanted, and two, it is something new and different. But we've done that because frankly, we're asking for something new and different. We're asking for this traditional neighborhood development, which is what your comp plan invited, and we're trying to stay in keeping with that. We've offered it through a PUD platform, which is a trade-off of design and other amenities that the town wants in exchange for the right to be flexible in some of these development standards. So we are asking for that 1,900 square foot consideration of flexibility as the trade-off to be able to do some of these other cool features. And in recognition of the fact that, yes, we need to be compatible. Yes, we need to respect and mitigate impact to existing development, but we don't necessarily have to emulate it. And that can be a good thing. And we can, create some of these new and different and more creative design-based type of communities that your comp plan calls for. Townhome lot size. You asked for an increase in that as well, and we did keep those the same size, as you of course noted. And the main reason for that is just simply that another big goal and big priority for this project is housing option and choice. We are committed to providing that range of differentiated options for various buyers at various states in their life, at various needs. And so to be able to do that, we need to be able to have this range of a smaller product type that will yield a townhome product that we can meet the needs of different types of buyers. We've got larger single-family homes. We can always go bigger than these townhome lots. These are, of course, minimums in your book. So it's not to say that, down the road, if we need to go bigger, when a plat comes in, that's when that decision will be solidified. But we did want to keep our minimum where it was to continue with that full range of options and a commitment to make this community as inclusive as possible. We do think this plan, as presented, still achieves well a comprehensive plan consistency. Obviously, I spent a lot of time on the importance of that, and I think that we have satisfied that for our part. It achieves the future land use plan designations. It's both a traditional neighborhood development. You see there the bullet points that I've discussed ad nauseum with you guys, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing from me. We meet all of those. The suburban residential, which is the underlying land use there, again, called for pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods with ample sidewalks, with street trees, with the provision of a public and private greenway and neighborhood parks. So that's at the base of our T&D. The Gateway Corridor overlay. We've talked about the buffer that we want to provide, that we will provide. It will be a full screening of everything in this development, and we can meet that a couple different ways based on how you guys want to handle that. We don't have to go through these one by one, but I did go through all the goals and policies in your various categories, building principles, growth management policies, planning coordination policies, community appearance policies, your quality of life policies, and your public services and facilities policies. And I pulled out, as you can see, three slides worth of those policies and goals that we've met. Things like I've mentioned before, this T&D design that furthers these goals for new creative vision, new ways and methodologies for meeting these goals and visions that the town had for itself, to be able to serve more types of people, to be able to offer other housing options, to be able to flesh out its greenway system, to enhance its sidewalk system, to have better and future options for retail, restaurants, shops, that sort of thing, to utilize the guidance of your adopted plan. I just can't emphasize that enough. It's a big ask to be in this position and to come to a board like you and say, hey, we want this, and by the way, we want you to amend your comprehensive plan in order to give it to us. So I think that to bring forward a plan, even one as big and as landscape changing, transformational as this one, the fact that it is in keeping with your comprehensive plan is a huge step in the right direction. So I want to be able to build on that. The last slide there was one that I just had in case we needed it, but since you're looking at the handout, that's just a graphic representation where I've called out the walkability and pedestrian-friendly nature of this development, because that is such a key feature in your comp plan. I came across it in pretty much every goal and policy section. It highlighted pedestrian friendliness, walkability, connectivity, multimodal transportation. So I just wanted to apply that directly where you see our sidewalk networks everywhere, a multi-use path, pedestrian trails, of course, the public greenway being offered into your town's greenway system, and then the private trails that feed into that. I want to pause for a minute here on my comments and ask some of our experts to come up and speak to some other items, unless you guys would rather have a few questions about what I've said while it's fresh on your mind.
What do you all want to do? You want to ask some questions now, or you want the other folks to speak first?
Let's hear the other folks.
Hear the other folks?
It's fine.
Okay, let's hear the other folks.
All right. How about we start with traffic? Does that work?
Traffic, sure.
Jeff, you're up.
We've been eager to hear from traffic, so we are excited.
I'm usually the most exciting person in the room.
I figured as such.
Yeah. It's a laugh a minute.
My name
You're an
is Jeff
engineer,
Hook.
right?
I'm sorry?
Are you an engineer?
I am, yes.
Then you're definitely the most exciting person in the
I'm an
room.
engineer and a
Being married to an engineer, I know it well.
professional traffic operations expert too. So, well, it's double whammy for you. My name is Jeff Hokenottle, 5410 Trinity Road, Suite 102, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27607. Again, I'm a registered professional engineer. I work with the Timmons Group. I did not seal this study, but I am one of my employees did. I'm very familiar with it. I checked over it. He just happened to seal it. It's just kind of, I reviewed, he sealed. That's kind of how it worked out. But very familiar with the study. I'll give you some specifics about it. Probably the best way to do this would be just kind of tell you what we analyzed, tell you what we looked at, tell you our recommendations, and then ask for questions. So I don't really get into weeds unless you want me to. So
I think that the 600 plus pages we got was really in the weeds. I think we are good with a summary.
yeah, I was going to
That's
say,
in layman's terms.
you didn't read through all of it? I mean, you know.
I mean, a lot of us did read through.
I read it.
Some people read every single page.
Page
I read
turner,
a
yeah.
lot of the pages.
Yeah. So this traffic study analyzed 1,484 residential units. I think Amanda just said that we've now reduced to 1,279, but we looked at 1,484. We looked at, that was a combination of 643 single family and 841 multifamily, 30,000 square foot church, 25,200 square foot commercial, 3 athletic fields, a farmer's market, 40,000 square foot of government office building. We looked at existing conditions. We also looked at 3 different phases of build out, phase 1, 2, and 3, a 2023, 2025, 2027. Kind of a no build and build to make the comparison to see, what the future looks like and, with and without the site. We also looked at a horizon year, which is required by the DOT when there's a TIP project or a transportation improvement project DOT has. We looked at 2040 horizon year to make sure that our site will not adversely impact that development to a point where it's no longer functions, basically. We looked at 12 different intersections, unsignalized and signalized. Traffic counts were conducted prior to COVID restrictions, so November and December and January. The reason for the difference in times is because the scope was added on to. We started out anticipating the scope, counted in November, December, and then met with the DOT, scoped out the project. They added a couple intersections to us. So we went out and counted in January. All counts were conducted when school was in session. On a normal Tuesday through Thursday. I can look up, see which days, but that's typical counting practice for this case. Again, we also looked at, there were approximately about 10 site driveways that we looked at that kind of surrounding the property. Like I said, the study was scoped with NCDOT, and they agreed to the project study area. The study was also submitted to and reviewed by and approved by the NCDOT as well. So they were, they agreed with our recommendations. Let me go through and kind of describe those. Basically, long story short, so I don't have to go through each intersection unless you want me to, I certainly can. We recommended basically turn lanes where there weren't at each of the site driveways. That's basically the recommendation that came out of this. We've looked at intersection signalization for several of the driveways to see whether or not they met traffic signal warrants. They did not. The good thing about a development like this is when you've got so many access points, you disperse the traffic through the network. It's typically when you've got a development, you have 1, maybe 2 driveways, and it's concentrated in one point. In this case, you've got 10, and so it's concentrated throughout the network. Or there's not concentrated; it's spread throughout the network. So kind of dispersing that traffic, not having it in one certain spot. So because of that, did not meet signal warrants. To kind of describe what a signal warrant is to the folks that may or may not know, the federal guidelines state that there are certain thresholds that you have to meet in order to warrant a signal at an intersection. 3 of them are volume. The other, I can't remember if there's 8 or 10 now I'm thinking about it. The others are, the others have to do with pedestrians, schools, and things of that nature, accidents and things like that. So DOT requires that they meet at least 2 of the vehicular warrants unless there's a noted safety concern, which there isn't for any of the intersections. You look at a peak hour volume warrant, you look at a 4-hour volume warrant, you look at an 8-hour volume warrant. Must meet 2 of the 3. In the intersections that we looked at,
did not meet 2 of the 3. So we didn't warrant signalization at any intersections that we analyzed. It's important that you meet those warrants, or you can't install a signal without meeting those warrants because basically, if you put a signal up that's not warranted, you're liable for that location, anything that might happen. So DOT will not allow one to be put up on their roadways. So if the town wanted to do that or somebody wanted to do that, they'd have to take ownership of the roads. So that's kind of the basis of that. So I'll be happy to go into a lot more detail or less detail, answer questions, or kind of talk through whatever you guys would like to discuss.
Questions? Who has questions? Remind me, I'm sorry, will you remind me your name? It went in one ear and another.
Jeff.
Jeff. Questions for Jeff?
Yeah, I have one. You used volume between November and January, which was pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Is there any significant difference between that time of year and any other time of year?
Typically, traffic volumes counted around December are usually higher.
Christmas shopping.
Christmas shopping. Yeah, we made sure we were not in a holiday week. You cannot count on the week of Thanksgiving, and you can't count pretty much a week before Christmas. So stayed away from the holidays. So definitely not Christmas between New Year's.
So you basically took the highest peak volume.
We pretty much took the
time
highest
period
peak
of the
volume.
year.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Jeff, I have a question. This is Kara speaking. So I think the last time this traffic study was conducted was with the original plan, right? Not this revised plan with the increased single-family residence?
This is actually, we're actually counting, the study that we did is actually higher than the number she just quoted. We were in the 1400s and she quoted around 1200.
Okay, so the fact that because the, I don't know, I guess the density massing decreased, even though the whole plan and format has changed, that doesn't have an effect on the traffic study. Because I think the last time you were here, you had said if the single-family residents were in a different place, it could have an effect on the traffic. And so there could warrant a stoplight at like the Cedarwood entrance, potentially, if there were more single-family residents.
It would have to be fairly concentrated on the driveway. And I don't think that they concentrated those in a certain area. You'd almost have to have multifamily, and also probably would have to have limited ways in and out.
Okay.
So you'd have to almost focus it in that one spot. If you put a lot of commercial on a driveway or near a driveway and you put a lot of the higher density residential at one spot, then you would have more likely.
Okay.
But it takes approximately 100-ish vehicles in the peak hour and a consistent flow throughout the day in order to keep that to warrant signalization.
So do you think that it would be a good idea to potentially run a different traffic study with the revised plan, or you don't see a need for that?
I think what you've got right now, looking at it as a worst case scenario, because you've got more vehicles projected. I think if you ran it, I don't know that my recommendations would change because we recommended site driveway, turn lanes to the site driveways. You could shorten the length of storage, but it's probably not likely. We'd probably recommend about the same. If you significantly reduced it, then, it may be worth looking at. You significantly increased it, worth looking at. If she came up and then said we went to 1,500 units, I would say we need to relook at it. Just, said this gives you more of a worst case scenario.
Okay.
So do you know, was there any coordination with whoever's developing this other piece of property on Mackey Road? Because depending on what that is, that could very easily push the total for the area over 1,500.
At the time that we did the study, we worked with NCDOT and asked if there were any approved developments in the study area. And, when we conducted it, we included everything that they required us to look at. So if there's something that came in the meanwhile, then we sealed ours in July. So if it came in the meanwhile, then it wouldn't be included.
So then that property would be responsible for any?
They would be responsible for including ours as background. Yes, that's usually how it goes.
But this one hasn't been approved.
Usually, right.
Is it possible that they're planning something right now as we speak, and we're planning something right now, and neither of the two have met?
It's happened before. Yeah. I can't speak to, I don't know specific.
And then all of a sudden it's not adequate, the traffic study for either. Do you know what I mean? Like, would it eventually come together?
Well, typically, unless they get approved in the same meeting, usually one will get approved before the other. And then that one probably should be included as part of the background for the other.
Okay. So when one gets approved, then does another, like, do they check to see, is this traffic study, was it done?
Well, usually that's why they go through the district office. Usually the district is the one that can make that call to say that, okay, now that we've got an issue with this one came in, and they can say, we need to look at this, or you guys need to look at, but so when we met with the district, there was no mention of another study in the area that we needed to include that would significantly impact
Okay.
along with ours.
So this new if something were to happen on this Mackey Road here, they would at least know that you have done a study.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
the
okay,
district
okay.
would definitely inform them that this
Oh,
is
okay,
ongoing. And they could require them to use our study, and probably would if depending on how things are going. If they know that it's progressing forward, then they would definitely say, you need to use this.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure there weren't like two studies floating out there that never got combined to say, hey, there's actually a lot more units.
That's the one good thing about, everything has to go through the district office.
Okay.
DOT has to look at, and they're aware of things that are going on. And we scoped with them, and we've got a scoping document, and they've reviewed it and seen it, so they're well aware of it.
Okay. I had another question about on Guilford College Road, down at the part that has the median. You said there were going to be turning lanes, but does that include that? Would there be cutouts all of a sudden, or are they not? Would that say the way it is?
We did look at it. There's a process that has to go through in order to break control. Well, there's two things. There's control of access, and then there's medians. Control of access, I think part of this has control of access. And what that is the DOT has purchased right away to make the roadway basically not allow driveways. And there's a process you have to go through. It's about a year-long process. You have to go through in order to get that break control of access. I cannot remember, and I apologize if
That's okay.
one of these driveways may be in control of access. I don't believe the one that I'm labeling as site driveway 2 is. There is another process you have to go through. It's called, you have to do a median break, and it's about a half-year process. But you have to go through the DOT. There's several committees they have to go through to approve that median break.
Okay.
Because right now, there's, like I said, they check spacing and the analysis and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious.
Again, where are the turn lanes specifically?
Okay, let's walk, I guess, I'll go counterclockwise, starting at the driveway across from Brook Run Drive. I call that site driveway 9, so I guess I'm going to be counting down for you.
Where's that, on Mackey?
We've got a left turn recommended on Mackey,
Mackey.
right, at Mackey, right, in Brook Run.
Kind
So
of
I-
across from T1.
So I've got a left turn lane.
Oh, across from
recommended.
T1. Okay.
Okay, yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't have the drawing that you guys have.
That's okay.
Might be further down, actually. Just kidding. This one, it's the one in the middle, right? This one? Or this one? Oh, one at the top.
I think it's the
sorry.
one at the top,
Yes,
The one at the top. Okay. Yeah.
I think.
that's 9. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, because you said Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brook Run.
I
Yeah,
just
you're
went,
right.
just drove by there yesterday.
Sorry, yes. So that's Jordan Street.
Page 9.
Okay, sorry, 9, yes.
Okay, so working our way down, I guess, like I said, so once we got that one established, this will be easier to do. The next one down, it's a Renaissance Parkway. That is, we've got a left turn lane into our site there and a right turn lane into our site there. Working our way further down across from, and these are all built in different phases, just to let you know. We did that based on when the development, as the development comes in. And if they happen to change phases in the middle of construction or prior to construction, as these driveways come online is when the turn lanes need to be constructed. So working our way south of Renaissance Parkway, or excuse me, west of Renaissance Parkway to Jordan Creek Drive. Across the street from that, we have a right turn lane there. And we also have, I apologize, I'm getting old apparently. We don't have a left turn lane. We have a right turn lane shown for there. All right, working our way around to the loop road, I guess, so to speak, off of Guilford College Road.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
You said there's a right-hand turn lane, but no left.
Correct.
Does that mean left isn't allowed?
No, left is allowed. It's just, we didn't
There's
project,
just no lane to do it from?
we didn't project a lot of left turns to that location because of the 2 previous driveways that were there.
I just wondered.
There's
Yeah.
already a right turn lane going into Jordan.
Yeah,
Creek also,
I
so
got
maybe
that.
they
Yeah, I
don't
know
need
that.
it.
Yep.
Which way are you traveling? Toward Guilford College Road?
Yeah.
Down Mackey.
Yeah, counterclockwise, I guess. So now on Guilford College Road, looking at the 2 driveways that we've got, both of them already will be lined up across from I guess, a turn lane already, or roads already. So we've got Cedarwood and Guilford Road. Both of those already have a U-turn point or a left turn lane. So we didn't need a left turn lane there. We've got right turn lanes shown at both of those.
Right turn lane where?
right turn lane on Guilford College Road, turning into the site driveways,
Turning into what?
into the two site driveways off Guilford College Road. The loop road, these two driveways.
These two. Okay, not these two, but these two. So that's not off the property on the west side. It's off the property. It will be
it's-
taking the property off the east side.
It's the right turn lanes coming into here.
I'm just wondering where the lanes are going to take the property.
It's going to come into, it's going to be on our property or the
That's-
development
okay,
side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Then the new driveway break, as you head, I guess, down Guilford College Road towards, like, say, Gate City Boulevard, that's the one driveway I think we're going to need a break-in access, or one of the driveways need a break-in access. That we show a left turn lane and a right turn lane at that driveway. And then the one that's furthest up towards Gate City, I guess there's a U-turn point already shown there, so we're showing the left in there, and we've got a right turn lane at that driveway as well. That's across from Jamestown Square Drive.
Yeah.
And so those were the turn lanes we recommended.
Okay. Other questions? No, okay. All right, Jeff, thank you very much.
Good job.
Sure.
Good evening. Feels good to take off this mask. My name is Robbie Perkins. My address is 348 North Elm Street, Greensboro. And I work for NAI Piedmont Triad, which is a commercial real estate firm. And I'm here tonight to discuss the market for the proposed development. To start with, I thought we would look at it from three different levels. One level would be something that is readily available to the public, which is the website realtor.com. And realtor.com, of course, is a national site. You can pull it up on your handheld and look at houses all over the country and find out what they sold for and what they are asking for. And so we did that for Jamestown. And I'll put my mask back on and give you 9 copies. And going through the.
I'm sorry, Robbie, before you go on, Katie, do you already have a copy of this or? Okay. So you'll get a copy and it will go on the website? Okay.
So basically, it's just a printout of our website, and it starts talking about home values in Guilford County, North Carolina. Guilford County has 2,645 homes for sale today, up to $5.5 million, all housing types. Second page, I think, is important. The median price of the listed homes in Guilford County was $220,000, up 5%. Now, housing prices going up 5% means there's demand for housing. The median listed price per square foot was $112. Sale to list price ratio, homes in Guilford County, North Carolina sold for approximately the asking price in September of 2020. So there wasn't a whole lot of discounting on houses. Again, that shows market demand. A little further down on that page, Guilford County, North Carolina is a seller's market in September 2020, which means that there are more people looking to buy than there are homes available. And then a very critical piece of information at the bottom of that page says the median days on the market, 52 days. Now, when you're defining buyer's market, balanced market, and seller's market, a a buyer's market is anything under 5 months. A seller's market is anything under 5 months. A balanced market is 5 or 6 months. And then anything over that is a buyer's market. So what we're finding in Guilford County right now is that there are a lot more buyers than there are sellers. There's not much product. There are multiple offers on a lot of properties. And it's very interesting that, that this shift has occurred even in the midst of a pandemic. On the last page of this report, it shows the 16 differentiated towns or entities within Guilford County that are different submarkets. And it shows Jamestown, average median listing price is $247,000, price per square foot 111. At the time that they got their information, it showed 76 homes or condos for sale. And that was at their point. Now that's the national perspective. So what I did was I called two folks that I think are preeminent experts in this field, and they produced the following information. This first sheet was sent to me by Tony Jarrett, and Tony is the vice president in charge of this market for Allen Tate Realtors, one of the largest real estate firms in the market. And basically it goes through, and this information came directly out of Triad MLS. So it's not me making anything up. This came directly out of the Triad MLS, and it was dated the third quarter of 2020. And what it tells us is that the homes from $0 to $100,000 really slowed down. That's because there aren't any. When you think about it, there are not many properties you can buy in Guilford County for under $100,000. The prices, 100 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 5 were all 25, 39, and 64 days on the market. Now that tells me that that is really a seller's market. I mean, there are, Realtor.com said 52 days on the market. Well, this specific data for the Triad says anything under $500,000 is going to sell very, very quickly. And as referenced in that third column, it's going to sell a listing price to contract price is what that column shows, about 98%. So it's really right up there. So that comes from Tony Jarrett. The third piece of information I wanted to leave with you today was given to me from Kevin Green, who runs Berkshire Hathaway's office in the Triad. And Kevin couldn't be here tonight because he doesn't want to be in a crowd. But he said he would be here if. And what this sheet shows is the number of homes that were sold in Jamestown from 2015 through year-to-date 2020. 2015, there were 230 homes sold. 2016, 253 homes sold. 2017, 272 homes sold. 2018, 252 homes sold. 2019, 239 homes sold, and 205 homes sold year-to-date in 2020. Now, the most important piece of information on this sheet is that 39 homes are under contract today. And Kevin said that 17 homes, based on his assessment this afternoon, yes, there is demand for housing in not only Jamestown, but all of Guilford County. And the economic viability of this project is very strong.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, good presentation.
Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah. Any questions for Robbie at all? No, this is
Yes, I
helpful.
had
Go
a
ahead, Sherry.
question.
Sorry, Robbie. Sherry has a question for you.
A couple of them, I think. Hold on. This sheet with the prices and the days on the market, it says Triad Region. What about Jamestown? Days on the market? That just seems really broad, that sheet. I don't know how relevant that is for us in Jamestown.
Well, it's pretty relevant because
Okay.
Jamestown's right in the middle of the market, and the statistics don't go down, drill down that deep. And that's why I wanted to get Kevin's perspective on exactly how many homes were being sold each year in Jamestown.
Right,
And if you look-
that's here, but it doesn't give the prices on, it doesn't, this is Triad Region, and then this is sales in Jamestown. Of course, they're going to be fewer. Jamestown is very small,
Right.
too. And I think that, has to be put in perspective.
And I
It's not a
think-
major city.
And I think you can answer that by combining the three sources of information.
Okay.
Realtor.com indicated that the average sales price was $247,000 in Guilford County.
Okay, and we've
Okay.
got 247,000 for Jamestown.
Well, or for Jamestown is, you have Jamestown's average price on that last page was
247,000.
247,000. So you could take the data from Jamestown and take it to that triad sheet in terms of days on market. And it's going to be somewhere between 30 and 50 days. And based on how attractive Jamestown is, I would say that if a $250,000 house came on the market in Jamestown tomorrow, you'd probably have multiple offers on it based on these statistics. Jamestown is going to be stronger from a velocity standpoint than other areas in the Triad because of the amenities available in the community.
Well, also the small hometown feel that it has. The very
Hometown
thing
feel-
that
hometown-
people are attracted to.
That's correct. That's correct.
Robbie, is this all of Jamestown or the town limits of Jamestown?
Well, statistically, it's the town limits of Jamestown.
Town limit?
Yes.
So that does not include the ETJ areas.
No, not yet.
Well, then this is skewed.
Skewed in a way to make a difference, or, I don't think you can say that we're not in a strong seller's market with strong market demand. I mean, there's huge market demand for housing, anything under $500,000 in Guilford County, and those statistics prove it.
But this is just Jamestown town limits. It doesn't include Cedarwood or some of the other areas
Well, but
out there
but
for houses that are for sale too. So that,
Robbie, who pulled this for you? This,
Kevin Green,
yeah, I would think he would have used the 27282 Jamestown zip code.
he used everything.
Which goes outside of our town limits, which would take in Jamesford Meadows and Cedarwood, these areas that have a Jamestown mailing address.
Anything that has a Jamestown mailing address,
Yeah,
he's got.
Because
Whether
he
it's in-
couldn't have gotten this many.
Homes in Jamestown.
That's my-
homes
yeah, that was my
inside our
question.
city limits. It's too small. This had to take in our zip code.
And
the
the-
zip code, well, that's
and-
different from the town limits.
And the interesting part about it is the sales have been about 250 homes a year.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, why? Because there's not a lot of new product.
That's right.
And there's always a demand. So that's really why we're here, is because there is demand and strong demand.
Well, I think a counter argument that I've heard is that the current residents of this area are concerned that because the demand will be, well, the demand might not increase. I guess we won't know that by the time that this is built. But with the increase of houses available, it could affect current house values and house prices if the demand equals, the supply, I guess. So the
Well-
counter argument would be that this development could potentially hinder or damage house values that exist in this area.
You know,
That logically makes sense to me too, because you would have, it's not as, you have more houses.
Is that coming, but I mean, is that train of thought coming from someone who's, expert in the business or just intuitive thinking?
Well, I just think that, like Sherry said, part of the median house price, and as you mentioned, is because of the demand for houses in this area, which is it's a selling point for why we probably need more houses and more affordable houses in this area. But yeah, exactly.
And you really can't draw a circle or put a fence around Jamestown, because Jamestown touches High Point and it touches Greensboro. And so the market for Jamestown proper is strong, but also if you're going to follow the logic of more homes, dropping existing home prices, they're building more homes in Greensboro and more homes in High Point, and they're not affecting the prices. The prices in Jamestown are strong and will stay strong, especially in that price range. If that's the average price in Jamestown at about $250,000, that's the highest demand point for home buyers. And that's why those prices aren't going to go down. And that's why we're seeing prices in Guilford County move up the ladder, so to speak, because you can't find anything under $100,000 anymore. It's harder to find things under $200,000 anymore. And people are moving up the ladder because of the low interest rates as well.
Yep.
I mean, I certainly would be, if someone does have research that shows with a development like this, that other house prices go down, I'd be interested to see that. But, Robbie brought us concrete information from experts in the field, which I appreciate. So, and I'm certainly appreciative of if there is research or an expert out there that shows the reverse.
Madam Chairperson, Steve Monroe here. Thank you, Eddie. Having lived in Jamestown and Cedarwood for 28 years, Cedarwood cannot be compared to this new development. I've got 60 hardwood trees in my yard. Good sized lot. And somebody who wants that and wants to be able to get out and roam around and do those kinds of things, they're going to be attracted to that and to the single level house that we offer, particularly for the aging in place group. That's 74 million people who are out there, 6% of whom are moving to North Carolina. They're going to be attracted to that, and I'm not putting down what you folks are offering, but there's lots of room. And I can have an elevated, passionate discussion with my bride, and my neighbors are not going to hear it. Nor do they need to hear it. And she tells me what to do. But the whole point, if I'm a realtor and that's the folks, I'm probably not going to take them down here. Now, the senior sensitive stuff that you guys have, maybe because of entranceways and 3-foot and 4-foot corridors and the ADA compliant fixtures and all that stuff. But I'm going to take them to my place and I would like to get $250,000 for that house. Yeah, we didn't pay for that from your daddy.
I think historically it's shown that new homes set the top value for what somebody's looking at. Would I rather have an existing home or a new home for the same price? Okay, well, I'd rather have the new home. But then as the price of new construction has just gone out of sight, what that does is it pulls the value of existing homes up behind it. Because people go and look at this new section and I can have this 1,400 square foot home for $225,000 or whatever it is. But they can go over to Cedarwood and get a bigger lot, home, not as many frills, but just as much square footage or more for less money. So each product ends up appealing to a certain different part of our demographics that need homes. So a high-end development with these nice homes will actually pull up the values of existing homes rather than take them down, is my opinion as a 46-year realtor.
Do you think that this current plan proposes high-end development, Ed, in your expert opinion?
From the standpoint of, I talked to a builder from Winston. We tried to get come on the Davis property when we divided it into 3-acre tracts. And he was willing to build a quality home for 150 to 175 square foot, marble countertops and stuff. Ran to him the other day and asked him about his numbers. He said, oh, we don't touch anything in Winston for less than 250 a square foot if you're going to have nice finishes. So you talk about a high-end development. If you go to a high-end development and you require 2,000 square feet, and all of a sudden you got a 500,000 square foot home, and you're getting
$500,000 house.
I mean, $500,000 house. So the smaller square footages are still going to be more money because of the much higher cost per square foot. You figure 1,500 square feet at $225 a square foot, and you see that's going to be a lot higher than a much bigger home in Cedarwood will be. So Cedarwood is going to always be a desirable for the buying public who's transferring into North Carolina, in my opinion.
Well, I do live near Steve, and I have not heard any discussions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions for Robbie or conversation about that? Okay, Amanda, do we have others to hear from? Well, my thinking, just FYI for everyone, my thinking is hear from all the folks that have come to speak to us and then take a break. So that way they can, if they need to move on their merry ways to their far off homes, then they could do that without having to prolong it.
Much appreciated. Before, we've got one more, we've got the arborist, who I know everybody wants to hear from, but just because this seems like a natural place to mention it, I did want to absolutely agree and emphasize with what Mr. Monroe said. It is all about that optionality. And, you know, you've got great options in town for the type of situation that you were describing. And I think what we're saying without embarrassment is, yeah, this is something different. And it is that another option. And we think that it can be an asset and a nice way to flesh out the fabric of the community and not compete with or deplete those other great options that already exist. So, you know, I wanted to be clear about that's how we see it folding in. And also in terms of, is this a high quality development? You know, ask 100 people, you'll get 100 answers, I'm sure. And I'm not here to espout that there is a, you know, definable solution to that. But what I do hope that you'll see in these commitments, and I want to go through them here on page 24, is that we agree with you that we want it to be perceived that way by the majority of those 100 people. You know, we want this to be a community that does well. We want it to be a success. We want it to be homes that people can be proud of. So that's why we're trying to offer things that you, as the experts on Jamestown, say, hey, this is what people like about our community. So we are trying to do that. We've offered 8 new standards here for residential homes, all directly derived from your commentary, that we can fold in a fashion that still works for, you know, for the goals and standards that we have to meet in terms of keeping a flexibility that we can actually get somebody to build in and finish the product. So, you know, we are offering the garage doors with articulation to take away from that predominant feature being the front of a house. Entry bays, raised decorative paneling, and you can see all that on the visualization renderings that are in your packet this time around. We included those so that you can get a visual aid when we list all this stuff. What does that actually look like on the ground, and how does that look when you look down a street and see these different types of things?
Amanda, not to interrupt you, and this is neither here nor there, but you may not even know, I don't know who produces this booklet, but gosh, I really wish they would get some more diverse robo people in it. And also maybe have women who are wearing shirts and skirts that go past their rear ends. So I'm just going to point that out, that it might be not necessarily where we are as a culture in its depiction of
I agree.
women and the diversity that we were hoping to have in this community. So
Well, yes, I hope that we won't, I will take, you're right, we need to evolve those, but I think that they are produced from a visualization software. So that is not an indication of who we hand selected for that. I'll leave it at that.
I looked at that and I was like, oh my.
But
Just went back 20 years in the feminist movement.
Your point is?
we won't use those in the marketing material then. How about that? But I did want to highlight the commitment to, creating a differentiation of height grade on a streetscape. Yeah, that was something we talked about a lot, slab versus crawl space. And what I heard from this board was, it's not that you really care and have a definitive opinion on one versus the other, but you did want that visual differentiation. So that's why we've offered that percentage of a third of the homes will have that raised front step look to them. We've offered that at least half the homes will utilize that masonry front facade material to break up that facade. And on those 50% of homes that do that, 25% of that facade will do so. So it won't be that little strip of banding or just, archway around the door.
Is that 25% of the front?
Correct.
That's not much. That's a
Correct.
fourth.
Well, again, if you look at the visualizations and the renderings, that's done on purpose so that we can have those mixed material frontages, which is the style and look.
It just
that we're
doesn't
going
seem
for.
like much of a difference between some of the houses, really, from the pictures.
And it's only on the front facade. It isn't on any of the rest of the house, according to this.
Well, again, these are always minimums. So you can certainly come in and say, I want to buy this lot and I want the entire thing to be of that,
I think, though, as a board,
as a-
we're looking at we're looking at what we want to say that's going to be happening in our town, not what may not be happening.
I understand. And I do want to highlight, though, that the idea of emphasizing and focusing commitments on the front facade is for a reason. It's because
Well, a
that's
commitment,
public
but it's
right of
not
way.
written in the words.
Well,
And also,
and the
minimum
front-
of 14,000 square feet. Where are other homes? If we want a variety, we want affordability, and then we want to move up, we want to have all kinds of options, and I don't see any commitment there.
So I'll take
Maybe
your,
verbal, but it's certainly not in here.
so I'll take your first point first. It absolutely says on the front facade at a minimum of 25% of such facade. So that is a commitment to that facade that's
Right.
visible from the public right of way to others, which is what I heard from this board that you guys were concerned about, what faces to the community. And then you mentioned 14,000 square feet minimum, and that wasn't a commitment. I'm sorry. What was the question there?
1,400 square feet?
Are we,
Thank you, 1,400, not 14,000.
are we going to have larger homes?
Well, and that's something that I want to talk about too, but I'm wondering, can we speak to the arborist first so we
Sure.
can take a break and before we get into some of those other questions that we have for you, Amanda, and the developers?
Okay, now you can hear me clearly. Good evening. I'm Neil Beasley. I'm back for a second time. If you remember last time I was here.
Yes, I remember I was very cranky because it was the end of the evening.
I didn't, well, I was going to say that, but.
Fared
it
with
was rather late.
very well.
I am a certified arborist through the International Society of Arboriculture. That's a organization that certifies folks all across the world, not just in this country. I'm also a licensed landscape architect in the state of Virginia. I'm also a certified horticulturist in the state of Virginia, and my degree comes from NC State horticulture. So those are my credentials. Just as a reminder, And in front of you, you should have the arborist report that I painstakingly put together for you. I'm not going to go through every grave detail in here. You all can read and understand. It speaks for itself. I do want to point out some key aspects to it as well. The purpose of this report is sort of twofold. It's one, to understand what's there, give everybody a baseline of understanding of what are we working with. And the other side of that is to understand, inform us how we develop in terms of understanding what's there and the importance of what's there. So I'm just going to flip through real quick. Table of contents, you can see we'll talk about existing conditions first, specimen trees. I'll qualify what that means. We also have some maps that we use GIS to help us learn a little bit more about the property. We have some historic aerials as well. You can see how the property.
Those were my favorite.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to that too, to talk a little bit about how we pull those. And then I would be remiss to talk about trees on the property if I didn't speak to how development can affect tree preservation, in particular, the requirements of your ordinance. And so that's at the back end of this. And there are a couple of things I just want to speak specifically to as far as those. So let's flip through. I'm not going to read my introduction to you. Existing vegetation, we effectively have 3 different forest types: a deciduous forest, a mixed forest, and temperate evergreen forest. And I gave you some just brief species that would be in those areas that I've seen on the site and will be represented in those areas. I have not done a complete from corner to corner, end to end assessment of every tree on that property. I want that to be very clear. We've done effectively a desktop review. I've done a cursory walk past portions of the property. It's a big piece of property. So I obviously didn't look at every portion of the property, but that's generally what you have and is what I've seen, looking at reviewing the aerials and also what we've pulled from various sources online. Next page, specimen trees. Specifically, what is a specimen tree in North Carolina? Well, it's basically what planning has designated as either rare and unusual or significant. To my understanding, no trees on this property have been designated specimen trees. You will hear another term that we'll use across the state, and that is a heritage tree. Depending on where you are, what people call it, effectively specimen and heritage are speaking of the same mindset of what that tree is. Okay, you all use specimen tree, right? And I'm just saying, I don't believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if any of the trees have been designated. You're correct. Okay, good. So far, my report stands solid. However, we did our team did go out and walk the site and identify the big monster trees, the ones you can hug. The description is two people could hug and not see each other or touch hands.
I like that
So
description.
I've termed that a 40-inch DBH. I actually went out with my wife and tried to figure out.
That's adorable.
So this is not we did not measure any trees. We've just given sort of a rough idea where what I'm calling the big trees are on this property. There are some pictures there, a little dark in the print, and I will qualify the 1, 2, 3, 4th from the left on the top. I believe that's snuck in. That's actually a creek bed. I don't believe there's a large tree in that picture. So I don't want to
Here's this fallen tree that we wish we could have kept.
I bet there used to be a tree there holding that stream bed in place. But the other ones, you can see what we're talking about. And it's hard to tell from a picture relative size, but these are big trees. All right. We get into maps. Using GIS, we can start to pull in some other data and information into our maps. The first map, figure 1, shows where these existing, let's see, it was 31 trees that we assessed and are showing those big green dots. Those are where the big trees are on the property. We are labeling them as large trees. You will also see in that plan the tributaries, waterways, and those of you that know the property, Bull Run is your primary, I guess, creek, river, however you want to term it. But the basic, the destination point of all their tributaries go to Bull Run, where you see some wetlands and some associated natural features that go with it. So you can see across the board, the trees are basically scattered about. They're not necessarily associated with the tributaries in Bull Run, but some of them are attributed to the tributaries. So we basically have, we're across the board, runs the gamut in terms of where we are. Figure 2, the reason why we look at steep slopes is because traditionally 15% or steeper are slopes that, when it comes to development, are a little bit harder to deal with. And so we look at steep slopes because it may be an opportunity to preserve trees. Well, you can look, we have essentially one tree that's associated with steep slopes. So if I was a tree on the property, I'd want to be right there because I've got a steep slope that's protecting me to some degree. The next one shows you the different land covers that come from a national database that was, you can see the source in the bottom right, it's 2016. We have boxed out the primary land covers that you see. Mixed forest, which is sort of the predominant green. The dark green is that evergreen forest. And then, I'm sorry, the light green is the predominant forest, which is deciduous forest. And then the mixed is next. And then you've got the evergreen that's dark. That's just showing you the distribution of how the land is covered with trees. Figure 4, this is the one I really want you to focus on and look at because this starts to tell us where it's meaningful in terms of where those trees are located. And that is, where is their biodiversity? It's a little hard to see on a printout because we have so many different colors and some of them are a little light. But I will tell you, if you look at this, the higher we go in biodiversity, the closer we get to those tributaries and waters. Okay, that makes sense, right? This is both terrestrial and aquatic analysis, so that's where the aquatics are going to be. But we all know wildlife tends to live closer to the waterways. If you know about how we started this entire country, where did we build? Next to waterways.
On the water.
That's right, on the water. So they're pretty smart. I'm not sure we told them that or they told us that. But you can see that the importance of the forest is greater along these tributaries in Bull Run than it is in the wider open areas. And the reason why I point that out is because when we develop, we are required to stay away from the tributaries and waterways. And where it's more open and less biodiverse is where we develop, right? Which makes sense. It's informed development. And so you can see how that works when it comes to biodiversity. All right. Just so you understand kind of what we're working with, we gave you a table or a page with definitions that sort of describes each of those land cover areas and also how that biodiversity is formulated. That comes from a North Carolina, the North Carolina Natural Heritage Program. So that is a state organization that's giving you that information. All right, moving along, the historic aerials. So, and pardon the bottom 3 to the right, we do kind of cheat and take it off of a free website. So, just keep that in mind. But it tells you exactly what we're trying to get a point across is from 1955 to 2018, in terms of land cover, it has not changed hardly at all. And I wrote in here, that is because we have manipulated it. So because of natural succession, areas you leave alone will, in our environment, will grow to be tree covered forest. But those areas have been mowed regularly, so those areas have been affected, whether they were farmed or just mowed. For whatever reasons, we don't know. It doesn't really matter, but it shows you the distribution of tree cover on the property, and relatively, it has not changed. We summarize that with page 10, just kind of very quickly saying, this is what you have and it hasn't changed. What has changed is it's gotten taller. Okay, you've seen that. If you've been around long enough, you've probably seen how the trees have gotten taller. So more substantial in size, but not in cover. We did note that along the, let me get the eastern side, I think primarily because of that utility corridor has kind of grown in a little bit. The tree canopy has encroached. That's where you see the majority of the cover that's happened. Okay, page 10. All right. Now what we get into is how is this proposed development looking at these trees and everything that we've learned so far about the wooded forest on this property. We are showing just the primary road network that's proposed in the master plan. You can see there are a couple trees that have been impacted. So as part of my report, I would encourage our team of designers to think a little bit more about where these large trees are, and if the tree is healthy and worthy of keeping, maybe we redirect the road a little bit to get out of the way. Okay, that would be my recommendation, is look at this a little harder with these large trees. And granted, when the master plan was done, we didn't have that information. So this will be something we would look more at in terms of developing the site. There are a couple zoomed in areas that you can see just for convenience. So focus area 1, you can see in a little more detail. We're hitting 1, I guess that's off of Mackey, right at our entrance. I don't know if there's a whole lot we can do to save that tree based on transportation requirements. But I just want to also say there are a lot of layers to design in terms of how we orient roads and so forth on a property. The idea is do the best we can to protect the large trees and any trees of significance. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Now, after we kind of zoom in a couple pages, all right, we get into the development requirements, and I've picked a handful of what I've found in the ordinance that have impact on either preserving trees or maybe deteriorating the situation. And so I want to go through them one by one and just talk about tree conservation areas. So there are requirements to have what we call TCA on the property. And one of the things that I looked at was the smaller properties are required to have 1% protective tree cover on each parcel. I want to talk to you a little bit about the impact of that in terms of development. We speak of fragmented forests, and basically what's happening with urbanization is we're carving out all these paths and sections to the point where we're taking the trees and we're putting them in a smaller circle, and they do less environmentally. And so one of the things I worry about when I read a statement like that is that we're not leaving the trees where they are of best use. And so we might be trying to save a couple trees on 1% of a parcel, where maybe that 1% should be added to the biodiverse natural features and corridors and the tributaries. Give us a little bit more of a buffer on those waterways to protect those. Trying to develop and lots and try to protect a tree at 1%, you're probably going to do enough detriment to that tree that it's not going to live anyway, because of another factor that I'll get to in a minute. So what we try to do is we avoid these fragmented forest areas, and you'll see in the graphic at the bottom of tree conservation areas how we have sort of these leaping points. And there's a threshold, so to speak, when we start breaking up these forest areas. At the point that they get so small, then they don't help. But for birds, they don't really know. They can fly from tree to tree. Sometimes squirrels can fly from tree to tree. So we're trying to balance the development and not creating fragmented forest. But we are planting trees, street trees. There will be trees on people's property, right? Because we all love trees and want trees. And so that canopy will persist, but we try to avoid development in terms of fragmenting properties. Rather, and under the section on trees on a 3-to-1 slope, we want to create sort of these cores with these appendages. And the reason why those are important is because of terrestrial species. They're able to move within the property without having to cross roads, go through people's private property and so forth. If you go back to the plan or the whole site, the 460 odd acres at the beginning, you can sort of see how the tributaries in Bull Run give you that effect, right? If you imagine Bull Run as that center core, all the tributaries are connecting to that core. So our site actually is doing a pretty good job maintaining that character. Also, just wanted to say, you have a requirement on any slope steeper than 3-to-1 that it has to be treed. That's really good. That's an important aspect for stabilization, but it also gives you areas of more tree cover. So I wanted to point out that's a good one for you all. Critical root zone, I alluded to this earlier. You have seen this. You have seen a development carve out wooded areas to an edge. Now we've got 60, 80 foot vertical trees, 10 feet from a parking lot curb. That's kind of how it's done, right? Well, what we don't factor into that is what we call critical root zone. Your ordinance requires that the critical root zone be shown equal to 1 foot of length away from the tree radius per 1 inch of DBH measured diameter breast height, which is about up to here, 4.5 feet. We have to show that because if we're carving a road in and we're getting into the critical root zone of a large tree, we may elect to have to take that tree down during construction, because if we don't, impacting the critical root zone, we could be leaving it for someone else to have to deal with later in the process. There are ordinances that I've seen that you have to, if you grade to a point, you have to remove the trees to 15 to 20 feet. Even though the ground is protected, you still have to remove the trees because of that effect of getting into the critical root zone. So when it comes to development, critical root zone is crucial to showing on the plan because it tells us kind of what we're doing in terms of impacting the forest. All right. That's in your ordinance. This image comes from Texas A&M. It's the one thing I had to go outside the state for because it was the best image that I could give you that it really explains exactly what you all are doing here. Scenic corridor overlay requirement, and I won't read you what's in the requirement, but I just want to talk about that real briefly. Amanda mentioned this. I'm concerned when I hear the term berms and replanting. I get it. I understand why you want to do that. It's a constructed landscape. People are attracted to that. And you can then put back what you want in a pattern that you want it to be. However, do consider you're plowing down everything in its path. And some of the, I said this last time, some of the largest trees on your property are closer to the edges. So if we can discuss and negotiate where we do the removals and berming and talk about, does it have to be the entire perimeter? We can talk about preserving more tree cover.
And Neil, just to that point, and I think there was a misunderstanding, or maybe I had the misunderstanding, I don't know but I think what our thinking had been was keep as many trees as possible and use those as the buffer But in places that, there are a few places that do not have a tree cover to actually,
Use.
to use to shield the property, the new development from the roadway. There is where we may want to consider berms and such. But yeah, I think we were pretty
I
much.
think that's what I
in consensus that we want
understood
to
from
keep
the
it.
last meeting too.
If we can use trees as the buffer that are already there, let's please do that.
Okay, yeah, that's the majority of the property.
Yeah, most of Gilbert College Road for sure. There's a little section on Gilbert College that doesn't have it.
Okay, good. I will sleep better tonight.
I would prefer no berms at all if we had the trees,
Right.
or plantings behind them to fill in the spaces.
And I did point out that if screening is the objective, you can always supplement our natural forest that tends to go up with understory evergreens. There's species that will live in that shade. But my recommendation is where you do want specific screening, plant the evergreens where you want that and leave the big trees.
Okay,
All
I
right.
like that.
we like that.
The last one is invasive species. We are required to remove all invasive species. My review based on GIS and being out on site, the only real impact that I've seen is that of kudzu. I know nobody here likes kudzu because of what it does. And you'll notice where the pet cemetery is where the predominance of kudzu is located. Provisions are going to have to be made to eradicate that. I believe it's phase 3 when I looked at the phasing plan. So that's the development requirements that I focused on. And so just in conclusion, I just wanted to point out, we understand, or I understand, looking at this property and hearing from some of you all last time, how significant this property has been in the history of this town in terms of its uses. And hopefully what I can do as far as this review and some of the recommendations is to strike a balance where we can do development, but we do it in a smart way and we do it in an informed way. And when it comes to these natural features on site, we protect them and we do it in a way that helps preserve tree canopy. It's what we're all striving to do for the project. And I think you can do that with this project. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good report.
Questions? Do you have a question, Sherry? Go ahead.
Yes, the list of invasive species is always updated, or do you keep up with that? I mean, I hear about a new one listed all the time.
Yeah, what I've looked at in terms of my walk and then looking at Street View and so forth, I didn't see a predominance of invasive species, mainly tree of heaven, albizia. Well, that's mimosa, but
Right,
tree of heaven, right,
right.
is one that will migrate in.
Yes, it is.
And this may sound terrible coming from me, but sometimes I've seen pieces of property that are so infested with invasive species that it's almost better to just develop it because you're getting rid of a predominance of invasive species. Bradford pear is another one.
Yes.
I didn't see much of that. I did see mimosa in some of the edges, but it's a small percentage.
Yeah, I
that I've
haven't seen many of that
Correct,
on the outs, where I can see, anyway.
right.
What about ash trees? Do you see a lot of ash on the property? Do you know?
I didn't see, now remember, I haven't walked the whole property. But I have been in forest stands, and this may sound depressing, up in the Northern Virginia area into Maryland. We are doing tree surveys. We are measuring trees that are surviving emerald ash borer.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
And all the ash are gone. And the reason why we know why is because we're stepping over the trunks and the bark has peeled off and you can see all the tunneling.
Yeah.
And we pointed out to some of our other folks, ash, and that's emerald ash borers damage.
Yeah.
And that's why. And so we don't plant any more ash. And it's inevitable that if you do have ash on the property, it's probably going to be taken out by Emerald ash borer.
But those like significant trees that you found were not ash.
No, if you go back to page,
Yeah, I'm looking at 2 and it says the predominant species. I didn't see it listed, but I just wanted to ask because I have a personal
black cherry, sycamore, white oak, southern red oak. And when we get into the red oaks, especially in native forests, there's a lot of crossover. So I just put southern red oak, the mimosa we talked about, and then some American beech. We are very concerned about maples in our native forest because there's an insect that potentially that we've seen. I've got to do more research on that because it's brand spanking new. The next detriment to our forest could be on the maples, which would be a crime. Yeah.
It makes
Our forests are very resilient, but they're being attacked every day. And that's going to be the next one, I fear. Oak, we have some issues with oak, especially on the red oaks. White, the white oak family is a little bit more resistant to what's called oak decline. And so we're worried about that. So anyway, not to end on depressing.
No, that's
No.
The moral of the story, stock up on syrup now.
Maple.
Yeah, or come up with different soy syrup or something.
Soy syrup.
I don't know.
Thank you. That was helpful.
But generally, a good report in terms of how we can save and protect trees on the property.
I have a question. I'd like to know if you could make a connection between the best trees to save that carry the most other species. In other words, I think oak is the top of the chain for carrying, I don't know, 100 to 1,000. Somebody said that it was about 1,000 different species. I don't know if I believe that, but I know I at least heard 100.
Right.
So are there a priority for saving some of these trees too? Or does that just not even get in the picture?
You get into a lot of layers of associative species in terms of families, but you get into host species for desirable insects. Tulip poplar has I'm drawing a blank right now, but you're right. In
The
terms
oak is
of
the
what
top,
what
from what I understand.
Yeah, from what the trees contribute in terms of everything, stormwater, host species, all of that. It's a fruit bearing tree as well. So you're feeding. Yeah, you're right.
I thought so.
Yeah. But I mean, every tree is important.
Yes,
in terms
yes.
of social and economic values.
Yes.
Stormwater, I mentioned that in here. That's important as well. People have attributed trees to solving climate change, depending on where you are on that scale. We know trees help clean air, clean water. So there's your high note. We get off of death and destruction.
We're going to cut down the
Talk about
trees that
how
save
we
the
love
planet.
trees.
That's the high note.
That's right.
I'm glad you're recommending that they look again at the plan where the roads are so that we can save maybe some of these groupings, because I think groupings survive better than a single tree out in the middle of, by a street. But it can save some of those groupings, and we're looking at a couple of groupings. One is the northwest corner, and another, has a lot of them, and what is going to go there? Can we possibly look at that grouping and move houses around it or something? I know that in my hometown of Biloxi, Mississippi, which I referred to before, because of the live oaks being important for storms, to protect against storms, you cannot take one down. You have to have a really, really good reason, and then you have to replace it with another one that size. So, I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you build a parking lot, you build that parking lot around that tree with the root space too. So I just wonder how they got ahead of us here in North Carolina with some of those decisions of saving trees that were important to them.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Any more questions?
Any questions, any other questions or comments?
Thank
Okay,
you. Good report.
thank you. Amanda, was that your last presenter? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. Yeah, we can take a 10-minute break, so come back at 9:30. 9:30 on, 8:30, 8:30. Oh my gosh, I'm
Can you turn
already,
your clock back?
man alive. Let's come on back here, guys. Steve always seems to be our wayward soul here, trying to get back to, I know. But we'll get started.
Okay.
And thank you for all those presentations. Those were, I thought, informative. And I really appreciate those folks coming out to present to us. And I guess we want to open it up for discussion among us and questions for the developer. Does that sound good? Okay. Amanda, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, come on.
I think Jeff had one clarifying comment.
Oh,
he wanted
sure.
to make, just to add to his comments. You want to do that first?
Look, the two people who live the furthest away decided to stay. I don't understand. We're that charming.
This is where all the fun is tonight.
I just wanted to add one thing. It's one of the reasons why we didn't add certain, or we didn't have a lot of recommendations. It's rare that you see a site like this with this good infrastructure around it. So, I mean, you've already got your 4-lane, your 5-lane roads that are out there. So it's very rare that actually happens. So usually what we end up working with is usually like a 2-lane road with like one driveway. But here you've got, 10 driveways and you've got, 5-lane roads already built up in place. Like I said, I wanted to add that. Because I don't, just wanted to say, because it's not that we didn't recommend, it's because we didn't need to recommend because the infrastructure is already here, which is kind of rare. So anyway, I thought I wanted to just point that out.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Appreciate you letting me kind of summarize and wrap up. I know we've covered a lot of ground tonight. I do want to make one final point that I didn't go over, and it's an important one because y'all spent a lot of time on it. I've got a list here that Chairperson Glanville provided today of, a synopsis of the direction you gave, which I appreciated. And it tracked very closely with the list that I had been keeping all along. And I've got my check marks and notes along, and I think we've covered a lot of it. There's things that we haven't covered, and I think I've addressed tonight why we made those decisions. So we've at least talked about the analysis that went into those decisions. Big one on here that we haven't talked about though is the discussion of school and how this development impacts and how it will mitigate. That's a big, hairy, complex discussion, as we all know, and a lot of times the development on a micro level will try to speak to that by doing things that they can control in their universe. Things like using some of the square footage and acreage in ways and uses that won't produce school-age children, commercial, recreational space, open space, that type of thing, by age targeted, by lessening the bedrooms and the housing option styles in ways that market and experience tells us don't produce as many school-age children. We did kind of start there. We started with a plan that had a lot more non-residential square footage. It had higher open space because of the smaller lots. And we did talk about, age targeting and the townhome and the apartments as all ways that we felt like we were trying to minimize that school age population. And we understand that didn't feel like enough to the town. And, we hear you on that. And other priorities where I think, in your thinking if, hey, that really isn't getting us there anyway, we'd rather prioritize these other things. But we still want to hear about that. So I think the point I want to make is that you don't see a school donation site on your plan tonight. And that's because that is not an ad hoc thing a decision we can make unilaterally. That's a conversation that needs to be us in a room with the school board appropriate people and the council appropriate people to decide if that's a resource policy allocation that y'all want to make with this property, because that's going to be something that, frankly, it's going to serve Greensboro and High Point to a higher degree than it serves Jamestown. It's going to be a long time coming. It's going to serve a population that we don't even know what those lines are going to look like today. Will the county even be able to build it on a timeline that is acceptable to you? I think all those are important conversations that need to be had if we're really going to think about that in a meaningful way. And we are absolutely willing to do so. So I don't want the fact that it's not on the plan tonight to speak to you that it's precluded or not something that we're willing to consider. What we want to do is consider it in a meaningful and appropriate fashion. And to just stand up here and say, hey, we'll pay to play. Here's your 40 acres is, one, it's not legal, and two, it's not going to get us anywhere because it's not the right people at the table for that kind of discussion. Obviously, we're part of the Guilford County school system, and there's a lot of moving parts in that, even without this development. We just had the huge adequate facilities master plan that the school system spent millions of dollars on. We tried to get 2.1 billion to cover it. It didn't happen. We got 300 million. And then we didn't get the tax referendum that was supposed to give us the 300 million. So there's a lot at play here. But certainly, you know, if that's something that the town and the school board want to take up, we're there. We will have that conversation because, you know, we think that it's a meaningful one to have. We just want to do it in the right way. So I wanted to make that very sincere overture because I think that there's a time and a way to do it. And that's what we want to move towards if that's the town's desire on that front.
Well, and Amanda, I'm glad you brought that up because going to your presentation, the beginning of your presentation, as you know, I don't know, my notes are somewhere now. In the comprehensive plan, it says collaboration with the Guilford County schools around common educational and recreational needs. So when I was thinking about this and how it meets or doesn't meet the elements of our plan, that that's one. And I don't know if we've ever had, at least not since I've lived here, have we had a development this big that you really need to have that collaboration with the schools that's dictated in the plan. And so that was really something I was looking at. When is that? And I'm not saying that I don't understand necessarily from the plan that it's the developer's responsibility, but then maybe it's a joint responsibility for that kind of collaborations.
Right. And how does that joint effort come together?
Right.
Obviously.
And unfortunately, the plan doesn't give us the process, so it just.
Right. And that, I think it's going to be an uncharted territory, but that's why it needs to be a discussion with the right people in the room. And we're if we can be a part of that, if this can play into that, we're absolutely willing to hear that and offer what we can.
And just as a point to make, I don't know. That is why, because we didn't have a framework for how to do it or a process of how to do it. That is why I invited the schools to be part of the conversation, because I figured someone has to start somewhere.
Yep.
Instead of everyone saying, well, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. Let's just start somewhere and then see where that takes us and what we can do from there, rather than just keep saying, well, we don't know. So.
I mean, even if it was, okay, we don't want to have a school, but can you invite a charter school to come in that, I don't know, preferentially does its lottery towards Jamestown residents? You know, sure, we can have those conversations, but I think there needs to be a whole spectrum of options considered, and we're happy to do that. And if you can help with that in terms of what we can have on the table, then sure, let's hear about it and think about that. So. I think that that's a step. This is a nice segue into my closing statement. I think that that's a step that is a bigger policy consideration of this, that it does well to move on to the next level. And that's how I'll close out tonight. I said it in my letter to you guys, and I meant it, that, you know, I do appreciate how hard y'all have all worked on this the last several months, all these meetings and all these comments. I hope you'll agree went to good use. You know, I know it's not everything, but we did give a very thoughtful and thorough response to everything we heard. And I hope even if you disagree, you can at least see that we did think about it and we did hear you and we thought about where we're going to choose to disagree and why. And so I think, you know, I would say with the utmost respect that out of respect for your time and efficiency of the process, I do think it's time for action from this board, just because I think that you've crystallized the planning board issues and discussions and items that are not upper level community policy decisions. And certainly if you want to say, hey, you know, we still need a list of prohibited uses on the commercial. I'm not saying that this can't change at all. absolutely open to suggestions for, I could get on board if, or, if can you do this thing? Certainly we need to go back and, because we do want to assimilate the arborist report and see how we can rework that road network to handle that big stand of trees that's right near our entrance on Mackey Road. We want to be able to go grab that in a protected area. There's another stand you mentioned in the northwest corner that, we shift some lots or lose some lots to make that a nice pocket park where we can create that stand in their critical root zone. So absolutely, I'm not saying that all of that is done and over with, but I think that you have a process here that is a two-step process. So what we do tonight isn't going to necessarily be set in stone, and it by no means can't change again. But I think that what I am saying to you with full transparency is that the fundamentals about locations of uses, as many lots as we're comfortable striking from this right now, and those big high level or micro level discussions that have been so helpful here, I think we're at a point where we're ready to hear your decision on that. And please, again, if it's things that we can act upon, action items that are very kind of logical next steps to what we've put out, 100% want to hear that, and we can do that. I think I talked in the letter about condition approval with conditions or that type of thing. But the request for action is just out of an acknowledgement of the process. I think it's worked how it's supposed to work at this level. We've distilled a lot of information and made a lot of progress based on these discussions. And I would conclude and submit to you that it's time to move on in the process. And that's not just to accommodate our schedule. It's to accommodate a lot of things. Your time, your resources that you spend here every night. If we can't change or if we're no longer in a point where we're going to change big picture things, I just don't know that it's fair to you guys to sit here and let you keep talking every week. If we know we're at a point where, we're no longer changing big picture items, and we can utilize your two-step process to look at more of the big picture things that are still in flux. So that's why we make that request, and just to be respectful of the property owners who are waiting for this and of your time and of the town's process.
Thank you, Amanda. I wanted to address one thing before we went into other questions and comments and discussion. And I don't know, Matthew or Katie or Amanda, maybe you can speak to it. I know one of our folks who came and spoke to us earlier this evening with her petition talked about the desire to have it zoned as single-family residential. And I just want my understanding, and so I just want to make sure I have the correct understanding and that everyone who, is interested in this project has the right understanding, that if it were to be zoned single-family residential, all these things that we've talked about that we want to be preserved and the kinds of like architectural styles and stuff, that all goes out the window. Is that correct?
Do you want the technical regulatory?
Well, just the legal, like, yeah, the technical, like it would.
I think you should probably answer that to be.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna come up. So your question is, could they withdraw this application?
No.
Or-
So the folks who signed the petition, what I heard, and maybe I misheard, was that one of the things that they were requesting was to have it zoned as single-family residential.
Right.
To meet and have to adhere to the current zoning guidelines, which there are benefits to, because it would be larger lot sizes, but the reverse, there
are pros and cons.
There are pros and cons, and one of the cons would be all the work we've done about like building materials and aesthetics and all that, and
that's correct.
And
All of the
mixed
discussions,
use and walkways and all of this we would
Right.
have no say over any of that.
right? All of the discussions that you've had up to this point would probably be for naught, or for the most part, yes.
Yeah.
They could still request a conditional zoning, but at that point, it's less of a back and forth and more of it meets the ordinance or it doesn't.
Yeah,
And there are
yeah.
a few conditions that they could add to mitigate some impacts that they might be willing to do those. That's the beautiful thing about a planned unit development, is that they can get a little bit of flexibility from the ordinance, but we also get a little bit of a way to ask for things that we normally wouldn't be able to see. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, it does. I just wanted to make it clear that when the planning board, and I can't speak for the town council, but for the planning board, when we approved the PUD zoning district for Jamestown, that was one of the reasons we did so, was so we found that it would be beneficial for us to have some kind of oversight and control that we wouldn't otherwise have in other zoning districts. So I just want people to understand that we could just say, yeah, let's scrap all this and do single family residential, but then the developer could go in and do anything that fits in that zoning, what they want.
It would be inconsistent with our comprehensive plan, but yes, there is a mechanism for that in the law. You can adopt a change, as Amanda spoke about early in the meeting. You could say, this doesn't meet our comprehensive plan, but we want to divert from that and go a different direction.
Yeah.
And here's why.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted it clear that single family residential has pros to it, it also has cons to it. PUD has pros to it, has cons to it.
That's correct.
And one of the pros of the PUD is that we have some say in things like aesthetics and such.
You have a lot more flexibility to request those types of things.
Yeah.
It is a back and forth with the developer. That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Sure.
However, I mean, those things are in our land development ordinance. So there are certain features of the single family residential zoning district that already exist.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that, like I said, there are pros and cons. I didn't want people to think that, I guess I was trying to get across the point that if we did decide, if there was a decision that they want to request single family residential instead, that all these things that we've requested would stay, but just the lot sizes would be bigger. I guess that's what I was trying to indicate.
I mean, those may already be in existence, but in the land development ordinance already. So
Yeah, but I know like things like architectural styles, and correct me if I'm wrong, like we can't in single family residential, we can't dictate architectural styles and material usages and such, because we've encountered that before, so,
we can't,
yeah.
but some of those may already be covered in the LDO.
Yeah.
That's a minimum standard for that type of zone. We wouldn't need to because it's already in the LDO.
Yeah. But just because we've encountered that as a planning board before, where we wanted to make specific requests about materials that were used and an aesthetic to the home, and we could not do it because it was not within the zoning. So if you wanted 1,200 units that all look like they came from a Dr. Seuss novel, they could be that. So Dr. Seuss novel.
Well, we hope that we don't do that now.
Cookie
Right.
cutter project.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to say. All I was trying to indicate was if it's just sounded to me that the folks who presented the petition maybe had the idea, and I don't know because I didn't ask them, but maybe had the idea that if we switch to a single family residential, we would be basically getting what we're getting now with with this level of control over it, but we would just have bigger lots, and that is not the case. That's just what I was trying to get out there.
Good point. Very good point.
So, all right, now, if you have questions, discussion points here.
Well, we were referring to the PUD, and I have this old sheet of paper. I think this is what we originally had approximately a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it says some interesting things about preserve critical environmental resources, provide high-quality community amenities, compatibility with surrounding land uses, neighborhood character, high-quality architecture. So deliver exceptional quality community design. So I guess I'm still looking for some of that quality myself in what we have right now.
So do you want to, is that something you want to ask?
Yeah, that's something that I'm going back to what we originally signed up for when we signed up for a PUD.
Yeah, but I mean, is there something specific, things you are looking for or want to ask the developer about that? I mean, I guess I just am feeling it's a little.
It was a response to the, to single family, that this this is why we were attracted to this.
Yes, 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 yes.
Because we could ask for high quality or exceptional quality, environmental resources, et cetera, probably more so than single family.
Right, so I guess what I'm saying is I thought you were saying that you were still waiting to hear when are we going to get this high quality, exceptional quality that you
That
weren't
too.
seeing. And so what I'm asking is, do you have specific things you're looking for? Like I would say that, for instance, I made a note in my book here on page 19 that these townhomes look like Ganaway Street to me. And to me, that's not a high quality, necessarily use of townhomes. I also, one of the questions I had was that one of the things we had talked about, and it just wasn't indicated throughout here, but it was going to be a question I wanted to ask the developer, is one of the things we had really talked, I thought a lot about, was we really want a variety of housing sizes, different price points for these houses, some that were more affordable, that used the materials that made them possible at that price point, some that were bigger and higher end. And I didn't really see in this that kind of mixture of different styles of homes, different uses of homes for folks who are, retirement, new home buyer, first time home buyer versus a large family, that kind of thing. So like when I think of a high quality development, that's what I was envisioning. But that's my specific questions around it. So that's what I'm asking. Do you have specific ideas about a high quality rather than just say this is not high quality? So the developer knows what we're.
Right. Well, those things are the things we have discussed previously and asked for that variety. And it's not written in here,
Yes.
so I just need to see it in
Yeah,
print.
yeah,
not
I
in
agree with you.
Conditions or things that we may work on in the future. I trust printed word more.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with you. Yep. Other points of discussion or
Yeah,
questions?
Madam
or-
Chairman, are we going to be asked to vote up or down on this tonight?
The decision to vote is ours.
Okay.
So if
Are-
someone
are
makes
you
a
asking us
motion.
to do that? or
What's that?
Is it you're the chairperson? Is that where we're headed? We're going to be asked tonight?
I'm not asking anyone right now.
Well,
Not that I know of.
Amanda's asking for it.
Well, I know she is asking, but
What I'm
ultimately it's up
saying
to
is,
us.
last week was a significant week in the
Yeah.
lives of all of us.
Yeah, because of the time change.
This got
A few other things.
laid on my porch.
Right.
Somewhere around noon on Friday.
Yes.
When the whole country was in a
Yes.
holding pattern.
Yes.
I have not met a person that's spoken to me about this project that is in favor of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is essential that we all have a chance to think through it. You got to make these motions with certain language in it. And I don't think we ought to be doing that tonight.
I think that's a very good point.
I really don't think they ought to ask us to do that.
Yeah.
You're in good company.
Agreed.
You're in
An
good company.
excellent company.
I think there are quite a few of us.
I have to vote on it tonight.
I mean, it's going to happen. I realize the development's going to occur. This is Richard Newbill for those folks that are listening in. But we realize that development will occur, and this may be the perfect one. But I'm not convinced yet. I've got some questions to ask. There are 521 townhomes in this plan. And it says in your proposed development summary, Castleton Village plans to provide one of the townhome areas as a full rent community. How many townhomes are going to be in the full rent community?
I'm probably need to ask Zach to speak to that. That was something, oh, sorry.
Please.
Sorry. That was something that we provided, we thought as another way to offer optionality and different choices for different types of buyers. So, if that's easy to strike. We're not married to that. If that's just something that is completely not desirable.
I
But
just
if
want to
you-
know how many.
Zach, did you say?
What is one section?
It could be 0. It could also be up to 200, but statistically, again, just going back to numbers, 27% of all Jamestown residents rent. So we wanted to be able to provide them an option that they could be a centralized place, that we could take care of their yards, they do all the appropriate maintenance. It's all clustered together. So it could be 0, or we could make it all fee simple and then let the natural progression of 27% of Jamestown rent throughout the neighborhood.
So I think to answer your question, if you have a preference, we're happy to hear that and fold that in.
That's what, I just want to know how many you had in mind.
Well, let me say this before we go, and then Eddie, then I promise you're up. So, Russ, to your point, which I think is a very good point, because I agree. I was not too thrilled at 9 o'clock last night when I'm sending out emails trying to summarize things and go through this thing. And that's how I spent my weekend, because I got this during a work day on a Friday where I had to work. So, no, I have the same sentiment that I was not too pleased with the turnaround time. What I'm thinking, and this is just my view, Sarah's view, not for the whole board, just for me, is that even if we do not vote today, if we could make some progress for the developer to know, okay, here is what is still lacking that we feel like we're not ready to vote. And part of that is because we need time to like actually sit with it and compare it to our comprehensive plan and such, and figure out where the consistencies and inconsistencies are. But if we are saying, if we could say to them, for instance, you know, we don't see the lot size variation that we were hoping for and the different types of home variation that we were hoping for, and that's what we're missing, then we can at least get closer to where we can do something about this. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Eddie.
First, I want to thank everybody that has redone and issued new figures and assessments and planning and changing the plan to some degree. But I'm shocked that we got information as late as tonight of things that we have been talking about. In the corner of Guilford Road and Guilford College Road, which is Civic, we've been talking about that spot since day one. And where are we tonight? We have an influx of people giving us a new plan that a new church is going there. How convenient. And I'm shocked. And really, I won't say what I would like to say. I'm really that way. You have surprised us. And then bring the veterans in. I am a veteran. But that was a shock. Why wasn't it in the paper Friday when we got the booklet? And then your changes that you have made don't even lead up to one of the low-end projects west of Jamestown. I am shocked. And the townhomes are virtually unchanged. I'm shocked again because we've been talking for weeks and months to reduce the density, make it better. Jamestown is better than this. This project does not live up to where Jamestown is supposed to be. And I'm upset. And I have every right to be, and I think everyone at this table is upset. It didn't have to be this way, and you're making us think that we got a We're better than this, and there is no way that we would vote on a project like this. I'm in agreement not to bring it to a vote. Ted Johnson would turn over if he knew that we're about to take a look at this project in the way it is presented. I know him. I've worked with him. I've been on committees with him. JC's with him. Known him for over 50 years. And this isn't right. And I am not about to put my name on this project.
All right, thank you, Eddie.
Tonight, I'm not.
Well, do you
Till I see some changes.
have you had thoughts, Eddie, that you want to share tonight about what changes you want to see?
I want to see a reduction in density. I want to see a bigger building. I want to see a bigger square footage. I want something better than what we got behind the post office and better than what we got across in front of the bakery and what we're the first project you see in front of Merrifield. Something better than that, but we're not getting it. And Jamestown deserves better than this. That property deserves better than that. That's all I'm gonna say.
All right, thank you, Eddie.
Tonight.
Sarah, do you think it would be good to conclude and gather our thoughts? Also, we haven't had time for public input either, and maybe gather our best questions or best suggestions and try again in December? It's 3 hours now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my concern about, I'm not saying that we need to progress to a vote tonight, but my concern is I feel like we've had our best thoughts, and I just don't know what more we can think through at this point that we don't already know. Now, granted, unless someone didn't get a chance to look at this and really think through it thoroughly because we got it at such a late hour, that I understand. But like, I know for myself personally, I had time to go through it over the weekend and, was able to formulate, here's what I am not seeing that I would like to ask the developer about, like, is there a resolution to this? And I would like to have that dialogue with them. But I don't feel like if I go back in a month later, I'm going to have anything new that I need to ask or bring or say that I would like to see, that I can't ask about tonight.
So ask about it.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get us to.
I just think 3 hours is getting a little long for some of the people here. To begin on another half hour of discussion, because that's what I would have, I've got a bunch of questions too. And I've written them all down. I wouldn't forget them in a month.
Not that I would forget anything, because I have mine written down too. I just don't know if I'm going to come up with anything new in a month. And I'm not sure at this point, if we can do something in the meantime to progress us, then I'd say let's progress us.
Sarah, I would, because there are important residents who I've already spoken with, but it was about the original plan, who I have not spoken with about this revised plan due to the time that we.
Okay.
So I would 100% appreciate more time to speak with other people who may have stronger opinions than I do about the project.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is,
So-
I guess I'm not articulating it well, and that's because this is not my time to shine here, but I'm not saying that we would not have other things to talk about later, but if we have things now that we know and can ask the developer about, I'm not seeing a reason to not do that right now, is my point. And in terms of getting the public input, that's something I'd have to defer to Katie, because we closed the public comments. So the public, I don't necessarily appreciate the fact that the public didn't get to see this till Friday and then had to come comment on it. I don't think that was the right way to do things, but that's what we had, and we closed the public comments. So, I mean, citizens could reach out to us, but we will not be having another public comment period, is the thing, in a month. So So again, I guess I'm not articulating it well, but I would like to just, anything that we can do to get us closer tonight, I just don't see a reason not to do it.
Madam Chairperson, we've went through a series of meetings with the facilitator that came in and took all of our comments. He recorded it, gave it back to us, and then he came back and clarified it. That's what we did last time. So we've got the list. If we've come up with something in addition to that, then we add it to this and we give it to the developer. But we don't need to plow any more ground. Here it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, okay, so for example, I want to ask the developer directly. We did talk about variety of lot sizes. That was not reflected in the plan. I'm hearing minimum, but what I'm seeing in the plan is it says lot setbacks shall be as follows. And things shall be as follows. It doesn't, I'm not, maybe I'm missing it. I'm not seeing where it says the minimum is.
Yeah, actually, Chair, if we're going to continue this, I think we need to take a 5-minute recess to reconvene. I feel like this has devolved to an interchange that's not particularly productive or appropriate. So we need to kind of reconvene.
Okay.
And
would you like us to reconvene another day or?
if it's okay, if we could just take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah, that's fine.
Discuss what we've heard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, let's take a 5-minute recess.
Why don't we move to adjourn and that'll talk the whole thing.
We'll take a 5-minute recess and then we'll see where we are.
Didn't she say to us,
Back here. All right. Amanda, go ahead.
Thank you for that opportunity. Again, trying to keep this respectful and efficient, just based on what we've heard in the back and forth, it doesn't seem like we're in a place where we're ever going to be on the same page with a PUD. I mean, if I'm wrong about that, please let me know. But what I'm hearing is that Jamestown, at least through the planning board, is more comfortable with a single-family residential development, which is fine. You know, that's feedback that it is what it is. But I don't think that it makes a lot of sense, to Mr. Monroe's point, to rehash the same ground. You know, I understand that we didn't do everything the way you wanted it done, but we did make our best effort, and we've respected what you said along the way, and it, you know, clearly is not being met with a place that gets us any closer. So even if it's a no vote, we would respectfully request a vote tonight, and a decision not to vote, you know, I think just tells us that we're in a place where we're just not going to be on the same page about what a PUD is, what the comp plan calls for in Jamestown, and what, you know, we felt like the invitation for a development style here was.
I mean, I can let others speak to that. I did not have the sense that we are not in agreement with a PUD. I do believe that we have given a lot of effort to this. You have pointed that out. I think, you know, maybe we have lost course here, but my intent was to be, you brought some new information tonight that we didn't have, that maybe there was some other new information we could talk about. Like, for instance, one of the concerns was the lot sizes, which it sounds like I'm not the only one, that maybe that in the plan, it doesn't indicate there are a variety of different sizes of homes and all this kind of thing. And that those are the things we could talk further about, to say, is there a plan for that? And we're just not reading it. And how do we get to that final place where we're comfortable, which I thought we were getting closer to. I was trying to get us closer to it. But I mean, I am not of the mindset that we should necessarily go with a single family residential. I think we lose a lot of control in that situation. So, but I think because, and I mean, I apologize, but this did come to us very late in the game. And then we previously at our last meeting had been told that the court, I had asked and asked and asked, how should this unfold? And at the last meeting, the decision coming from you and the developer was that let's have our next meeting with public comment. Then we're going to come back with a plan to have a vote on. And then that got changed in between meetings. And so we all had to then shift gears, thinking we may need to be voting, but then we don't get the information in a timely manner. And we don't have enough time to hear public feedback for that plan. So I think from my perspective, it's a little unfair to say we don't want a PUD. I think what we are saying is we want this, but we need to be able to work in good faith with you. You need to be able to work in good faith with us. And when we get information that's brand new on a night that you want us to vote, that's not working in good faith. When we get the new plan 2 days in advance, then that's not working in good faith, and then being asked to vote on it.
I understand. It's the timing point. I understand that, and I take that to heart. I do. I worked on this all weekend too, so I get it. But to say that it's brand new.
Don't forget, you get paid, and this was your job. The rest of us asked for this plan forever, and then didn't get it, and then we get it on the afternoon of a Friday when some of us are working still, and now we are taking our weekend to work on this. So I just.
It is the evolved plan that we've been talking about for 3 months. So it's not like we completely took out the old and showed you something new for the very first time. So I think, you know, it's something that, you know, we didn't introduce anything new that wasn't a part of your discussion. So I think that, you know, fleshing out things like who this church is, that's in direct response to you guys saying, why does this say civic and institutional? Why does Jamestown need a church? So we answered that. You know, the talk about the veterans coming, that was that's not information that would normally ever be included in this presentation. We don't talk about who our end users are going to be. We don't usually know who they are. That's just a community aspect of this. They're excited and they wanted to share that, and they heard tonight was public comment. So, to try and twist all of that as something else is just,
What do you
it's
feel
just
it's
showing me that we're
twisted
kind of
as?
off the rails.
What do you feel is
been
being
met with
twisted as?
anger and as if that was deceitful or manipulative somehow. But I don't think that's productive, so I really don't want to dwell at that. But what I would say is the reason I think, we might just be completely too far apart on a PUD is because, to hear things like we need significantly less density and bigger lots, that's completely going back to what we can do better with under single-family residential. So you have to see that trade-off is just non-existent for us.
And I think what we were trying to, at least where I was trying to get us in the conversation was one of the things we talked about and had looked at was that communities with a variety of sizes. And what I was saying is this plan says this is the lot size. Now, you said earlier that it comes down to when we get the official plat and such. So, I think the question for me had been not necessarily that we can't have any smaller lot sizes, because I agree with you that part of the flexibility is that. But is there any plan to have a variety of different kinds of homes to meet different kinds of buyers' needs? Because in this, what was presented, the home elevations that you showed us were the exact same ones from last time. And those are all fairly small homes for either.
Same one.
Right, for either, two people, a single person, or a very small family. We're not seeing a variety. So what we're trying to ask, at least what I was trying to ask is there a plan to have that kind of variety that we talked about, where you will have some really small lots because people don't want yard maintenance, they don't want all that, but then also have a mixture with some other kinds of properties that appeal to different kinds of buyers?
And the answer is, simply put, not really.
Okay, so that's what we need to find out. If the answer of that is no, then the answer is no.
Yeah, and there will be some differentiation just because when you engineer something, everything isn't going to be exact 8,100 square feet. So sure, you'll have some bigger corner lots. You'll have some bigger lots when we skew things for the environmental features and that sort of thing. So in that sense, you will. But that's kind of the point I was making earlier. We can disagree about, the validity and the quality of this plan, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we can go back and change it to be exactly what you want. The only way that we can do that is to come in a different type of mechanism under a different platform, which is single-family zoning. And, if that is the will of the town, we're happy to do that. But we just are at a point where, I don't think it's fair to any of us to continue on this cycle where we change a little bit, it's still not right, then we get public comment, and we're still, just in the same wheel of never really advancing. So that's what I'm trying to avoid, for all of our sakes.
Okay. I mean, that answered one of my questions, because my question was, is that the only lot size that we're going to have? And you're saying, yes, it is. So
That is the predominant, yes.
yes. Go ahead, Steve.
Amanda, if you would, please. And I may be way out in left field with this, but when we were talking initially, the idea I thought was for this development from a single family detached standpoint, not attached, but detached, that there would be maybe a variety of builders that you all had approved, and they would come and they would make their products available rather than this is the standard and you get to choose A through F with these types of facade on it. Would there be a variety of builders that would come? They would be restricted to the size of the lot, but they would bring their imagination to this?
I think that's one way that it could go, but we don't know that yet. We don't get builders who are willing to say, yes, I want to be in that subdivision, I want to sign a contract with you, until we know what we have to offer them. And at this point, what we've been through here and the evolution of this, we have nothing to show a builder to get them to sign and say, I want to be on that subdivision, or to show a group of builders. So we're just not even that far along. So what we're trying to do is strike that balance to where we give you enough of the commitments that you're looking for to feel good about, but we maintain enough ability jive and move and weave and be flexible to end up, being able to get some folks to build in here.
All right. Eddie, my point is that you would have, Zach gets to choose who these guys are, or gals, because we've got some quality women builders in this area. But they would come and they would buy the lots, and here's the expectation. You will use these types. For instance, the vinyl siding that they use is 1/3 thicker by standard than all the stuff that you were talking about down there, over across from Pennyburn. It's 1/3 thicker. They're that far ahead of the curve, Eddie. But here are the standards. This is what we expect you to do. And here's the lot. Now, you go get creative with your people and you go sell a house, which means we would have a wide variety of affordable houses that would be semi-custom in this development. And it would be glorious. Not just the standard elevation that we've seen, but an immense variety, because these builders, and the prediction right now is that the housing market is going to continue to expand and explode. But they would come and use, because now they're in competition with other folks, and we're in Jamestown. I think we would see an opportunity within these guidelines of having a wide variety of architectural styles, way beyond what you and I have seen. And I think, for me, that would be exciting to see that go up here. Now, is it going to be Whittington Hall or some of the rest of these things? No, because of the price range. We're not going to put $400,000 and $500,000 houses on this thing. If so, then we're defeating the purpose of having housing that is affordable. I have 6 children, most of whom have at least 1 degree, if not 2 degrees. There's not a single one of them right now that can afford to live in Jamestown unless they come and buy something in Cedarwood. So if we're trying to bring in not the doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs, but the firefighters and police and first responders and teachers and PAs, and that's one of my passions, as I know it is for years, and diversify and have something other than just white folk here, then we have the opportunity to do that. And maybe that's my vision based on what I thought that we were talking about originally, is to see an incredible array of architectural styles. But here are the guidelines, and we set the guidelines. We set the guideline. We set the standard. They can't use a GAF roof. They have to use something that's architectural, for instance.
Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't said $500,000 houses.
No, but what I'm saying,
I'm not talking about 500. I'm talking about less density, less townhomes, and better quality. It doesn't mean 500,000. That means better than what we got up the street. That means 2-car garages. I haven't heard anything about garages.
Yeah.
I have been talking about garages for how long?
Forever.
And then the surprise is shocking.
Excuse me,
all right,
may I speak?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you. I just want to say, developers, that Eddie doesn't speak for all of us. He spoke his opinion with passion. I'm certainly not offended at the work that you guys have done on this. And I love the idea of this type of mixed-use community with the buildings that resemble the old Honey Lodge in Cedarwood. And I understand that there's got to be money made to pay for all these walking trails, to pay for all these different amenities that are going to make this development very cool. The problem is there's certainly a pretty big part of our population in Jamestown. They are not sitting here at the table. I'm not saying that, but they really don't want the land developed. So we're pushing back against those, that it's fair for you guys to be able to develop this and do a good job, and working out between our diverse community and you guys I'm not sure that we can accomplish it. But I love what you've done. I think it's very close to where I could vote for it with a little bit of tweaking.
And that's what I'm saying. I think we are close to accomplishing it. I think forcing our hand on a vote tonight, I could not say, I have to go back and say, okay, based on the information that this will be the only lot size, does that cost outweigh the benefits or not? And so then I can decide whether I want to vote yay or nay on approving it. But I cannot, I was trying to solicit the information tonight so that we could make a thoughtful decision, not to rehash other things, not to go in to try to create new standards, but just based on the things, is this it? Is this it? And this is what we have to vote on, or are there other things we don't know about? Like, for instance, we're willing to talk with the schools. We have this church that we're going to donate land to. We have these housing units. That's all new information that I would take into consideration whether to vote yay or nay. And I think to have us, by saying if we don't vote tonight, that says we don't want the PUD or we're not willing to work with you all, I think that's highly unfair, highly, highly unfair.
I agree.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I do want to, obviously this is what we would prefer and this is what we're trying to do. So I don't want to throw away, the good with the bad. But what I would say is perhaps it would help us to focus on what I would consider two threshold things, the unit count and the lot size. Because I'm telling you that's not something that we can substantially deviate. I mean, sure, a little bit as we tweak things, absolutely, but within 50 units maybe, and the lot sizes, we're kind of there. So if that's something that we are just categorically not aligned on, all this other stuff isn't going to get us there. So perhaps that might crystallize tonight's decision.
I mean, I agree, but what I'm saying is now I need to think about that. Like, I need to I can't decide right now.
Okay.
Is that lot size, is that the make or break it deal for me? Is that lot size and that density?
Can we talk about what that would look like then if we were to leave tonight with this still open? How, what the process would be that we both agree to and don't deviate from in the meantime in terms of, with the holidays coming up and
Great question.
160D looming when we would have to start this process all over again?
Good question.
It's not just our timeframes that we're coming up on.
With what looming?
160D is going to be adopted and go into effect, and it's going to change your entire ordinance. And since this plan isn't adopted, we would have to start over.
Is that start in January?
When does that come on, Matt?
What does that mean?
I think we do need to know about that.
No, we haven't.
So 160D is the new law change that's going to be coming. It does affect all of municipalities and jurisdictions, counties in the state. We will probably, our plan is to start bringing you stuff from our consultant in January to look at updating our entire development ordinance to comply with the new law. We have until July 1 to get it done. We don't need this particular development issue in front of us while that's going on, because Amanda is correct. It will completely change everything.
How?
We don't need to.
If this is on the books now, though,
Excuse me?
if this is on the books and we're working on it now, and this
It's
won't
not,
be
it's not
effect-
grandfathered in. It needs, that the law is clear. We have a very
When
specific
does the law
time.
start?
Technically, it starts January 1. We could adopt it now. We could completely adopt the changes now. 160D starts January 1st, if I'm not mistaken. We must have adopted it by July the 1st, if I'm not
So
mistaken.
we have a few months.
But we have a very, very limited window.
I understand
Very limited
that.
window, which the town council also needs to hear this development request
I understand.
in
what
its
you're talking
entirety
about.
before we adopt those.
And I just want to point out for anyone listening, this is brand new information for the planning board. So this is not something that we even knew to consider.
I
So-
have read about it though, and
I
I
had not heard
understand the
anything about
concern
it.
now.
It is something that we do need to consider. I wanna be-
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
clear
yeah,
that-
but what I'm saying is, I didn't know that this law was going into effect January 1st. That was going to totally
Yes,
change
it
things.
is
so.
important that I agree, Matt. This is important.
Well,
I didn't either.
Set another meeting for a week or two.
Yeah, I mean,
where we will vote.
yeah, I'm at a loss right now. I just don't know. Yeah, Kenny, go ahead.
And I don't know, I don't want to say one more thing. I don't know if, and I haven't talked to Amanda or anything about this, but I don't know if the board was considering, a few more days to consider the options that have been presented this evening. If they wanted to reconvene in a 1 to 2 week period, we could try to accommodate that the best we could. But I don't think that it's wise for us to wait until December. It's putting the planning board and the council and the staff in a very precarious position. In my opinion, vote it up, vote it down, but sort of move it along to the next step, which is for the town council. It's not done at this point.
No, we know that.
Right. Okay, I
Yeah,
just
we
wanna be
know that.
clear.
No, I just want to say, y'all have done an outstanding job. When this thing started out, I thought it was going to be way beyond reach. How you adopted the PUD, it was something new to Jamestown. This planning board jumped on it. Y'all went through the plans, and I just think that you were real close.
I agree. That's what I was trying to
You were
convey,
so
Kenny.
close, and I have to say, the developer, maybe they came in a little bit late with this plan, which I would agree. But I would keep it going. Do not stop. It's going to be good for us. Y'all have done a great job. Don't throw it away, and just recess and come back in a couple of weeks when you've had time to look at those plans. Because I'm sure that threw you off when you got them Friday. So
Yes. Yes, and I think this is what we've been trying to say. And then there's a monkey
Fair.
wrench of, if you don't vote at all, then
Yeah.
indication that you
And I
don't want
agree,
the
I would
PUD.
not
and-
vote tonight, but you're almost there, and I
Yeah.
feel like you need to keep moving with it. I really do.
I'd like to say that I know now exactly what you're talking about, and I know what Matt is talking about. And so my concern is that we do move along quickly. Quickly. I don't know if you know what he's talking about, but I do think that we should move along quickly.
From what I've.
So the plans, it got to you late. It caught you off guard. I knew that it would. Eddie expressed it, but I really would, come back in a couple of weeks, because it is going to get, with December coming up, this has got to go through town council. That's going to take a while too. So, I guess they be a little considerate to the developer that, the property is going to be developed.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I
going to be developed.
thought that's what we were trying to do, and I didn't think we had said we were coming back in December. I didn't think we had said we were coming back at any time. That was one suggestion thrown out, and then it really devolved.
But y'all done a
So-
great job with it, and just keep on. Thank you.
I mean, I don't know what else to do at this point, honestly.
Well, let me
So-
make it perfectly clear. I'm not against the plan or the development, the development. I'm not against it, never have been. I want it done the best it can be done. And we all should. We don't have to settle for less.
Yeah, go ahead.
But if it gets down to it though, it's a financial decision for them.
That's not our responsibility.
I understand
We
that.
have to have the best plan for the property.
Yeah.
For Jamestown. That's all I'm asking, and I don't think we got it yet. Plus the surprises.
But what we can be so strong in our opinion that this thing just won't happen this
I
way
think
at
you're
all.
wrong.
And that's going to completely change and just happen. Another big single-family subdivision development that will be more in direct competition with our existing developments than this would be. That's a completely different concept, because the people that want to be in our developments might not like that concept with the smaller lots and the less elbow room. So that would still leave value on what we've already got developed here in Jamestown. If we force them into going into single-family units, then all of a sudden we've got subdivisions in competition with our subdivisions offering similar things because they'll have to be the minimum lot size. So I'm just saying we can keep adding cost to the development of the subdivision by our unwillingness to yield on some points and push it off the table. And then something else will come in here later, some more subdivisions, and maybe it's going to work out great for Jamestown. And maybe we'll look back and wonder, I wish we had given that thing a try. So I just wanted to say that out loud, that I think we're not that far away from being able to get a deal on this. But I don't know how far apart we are as a board, so we may never be able to come to a decision on it.
Who is talking about single-family homes?
Only. If we make the restrictions on this so tight that they can't financially afford to do it, then they'll pull back from this and they'll just do single family. They'll come in here and they'll bring 100 acres to do single family, and they'll do it to our zoning code, and we'll have no input on what kind of product it is, what the house looks like, or anything. I'm just saying, it's just two different ways to go. And I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. That might be the best way for Jamestown. We've all got to vote our heart on that. But I just see some things exciting about this concept, and I thought it would be cool. So.
And I think my concern, because I would like to make it clear that I'm not against a PUD. I'm not. We've talked about the benefits of a PUD. I think there are a lot of benefits to a PUD. What I did hear Amanda say was, this is the best plan that they can present to us. And that is a little bit concerning. And so if this is the best that they have, I mean, I'm with you, Ed, like for the most part.
Yeah, so maybe
Fine.
we're against this PUD if this is the best they have.
But if this is the best that they have, yeah. I
We're
don't know.
for a PUD, but not this PUD if it's the best they can,
Right.
they can give us.
And then you vote your conscience and we go up or down. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't.
Could
do
we
that
meet
after
in
all
a,
this.
could we
I can't do
possibly
that.
meet in a week? Give us a little time to really, maybe each individual member prioritize what a major concern is? Can we somehow work together?
Well, at this
It's
point, I don't
3
even think we
hours
need
and I
to-
think
I
we're
don't even think we need
tired.
to come up with major concerns at this point. I think what we have to decide is, they're saying this is the best they've got. Do we agree with this or do we not agree with this? And I can't decide that tonight, but for that, if I'm understanding the developer correctly, we don't even need to talk about anything else, because this is what they've got and they're not going to do anything more. And we either agree with it or we don't agree with it. And we either recommend it to the town council or we don't recommend it to the town council.
So they made their best offer. It's up to us to make our best offer, and then we can either agree.
We have no other offers. They're saying, this is it, this is it, this is what they're offering. They don't want to deal with us anymore. So then we either yay or nay
I mean,
it, and we
before you-
recommend or don't recommend to the town
Before we
council,
walk
and
away
then they
from the
take it.
table, you could say, okay, 10,000 square foot lot is our minimum. If 81 is your best, then I understand. We'll part friends and move on.
Right.
You know, I mean, it seems like it's all come down to density, and density for them is their bottom line, and density for us is how attractive we think it's going to look for Jamestown to be opposed to her. And I don't know that we can get those two numbers together.
Yeah, and we may not be
No,
able
we
to.
may not be able to, but at least we've
Yeah.
gotten tonight, we know where we are, we know what we're a part of, it's density. Pretty
Yeah.
much, you know?
Well, and my big things were, the only reason the density is so concerning to me is traffic and mostly schools, mostly the schools. And so that's my big thing with density. Other people may have other issues with density. For me, Sarah Glanville, that is my big thing with density. But if this is the best they've got, then we just need to come back. We need to set a date for another meeting, come back and say, we're not going to bring you any of our questions or concerns. Either we agree with this plan or we don't agree with this plan. And we're either recommending it or not recommending it to the town council.
Could we do that tonight? You're not in a place to.
I'm not in a place to vote tonight, but if other people want to,
Madam
I'll have to vote.
Chairwoman, I recommend that we gather together 2 weeks from tonight and make that decision and go from there.
You make a motion.
I make the motion.
Seconded.
Okay, so there's a motion.
2 weeks from May, November 23rd.
Yep.
At 6 p.m. at the Civic Center, is that correct?
At 6 PM in the Civic Center with no further announcement.
Yeah, that's over. So
Okay, great. Kara was the second. Okay, all those in favor? Is this just a regular aye? Katie? Is it an aye or a roll call?
It's fine.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay? Okay, any public comment, Katie?
Nobody says.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Okay, Richard Newbill second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed say nay? All right, we're adjourned.